Oh my God, we're alive. Oh, kill me. Just kidding. So, where do you want to begin? I got a whole list. I got pages here.
Pick one.
How about this stupid concept of eclectic witches? There's a controversial topic.
Oh, geez, let's just hit something like that right at the very beginning, huh?
Welcome to the Witchy Show.
Oh, yeah, and every time we do something a little bit controversial, I get called mean. Oh, well.
That was one time. One time, and that viewer's not even on YouTube anymore. So, like, calm down.
I'm not worried about it.
No,
I just think it's funny.
It's funny because neither of these people are on YouTube anymore, and none of my shit gets disliked. Well, my live videos get disliked, but everything else doesn't, which probably just opened up the floodgates to everybody disliking everything. But the 5 videos I put up did not get disliked, so we're good to go.
Good. So what's your take on the eclectic?
I think it's all a bunch of bullshit, and people want to mix and match and try and piecemeal a practice together instead of taking the time to study one particular path. I mean, yeah, it's great to have interest in various different paths, and it's great to research them and whatnot. But I mean, there's also this thing I've talked about in the past about like cultural misappropriation, where people think it's all right to mix and match, like, say, hoodoo or Voodoo or Santeria or what's the other one? There's another one that they think it's appropriate to just mix and match all these things. And you were even talking last time when we were talking about these topics about mixing and matching Native American stuff into it. And then they just go around and they're like, yeah, I'm an eclectic witch. And it's like, no, you're a cultural misappropriating piece of shit. Pick a path, study it, and move on with your life.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when someone is new and they're really not quite sure where their path lies as far as which way they're going to go with it, yeah, they know that they know that the witchcraft is the path they want, but as far as which method or which you know, are they going to follow a god or goddess? Are they going to whatever? There's a lot of times where they'll like experiment, like, okay, what is it like to do? You know, they're finding their way.
Yeah.
But I think that there comes a point where you have to make a commitment, especially if you're going to work with a deity. You know, it's a relationship. You know, I've talked about this before, that it's not something that you don't take your deity off the shelf and then put them back on the shelf when they're done doing what you want them to do.
Yeah.
It's a relationship. And if you're taking bits and pieces, and that, are you able to really develop a relationship? If you're following, like, for example, the you know, the Wicca, for example, since that's such a popular one, um, then if Wicca is fulfilling you and that's where your path lies, then why would you want to adopt aspects of hoodoo or Native American or whatever into your practice?
Because I think it's cool.
Well, the thing is, but then you run into a whole nother argument of, you know, are you doing this practice to look cool or to show off, or, like, you know, whatever, or is this really truly your belief? You can't treat witchcraft or any of the paths like you're going to a all you can eat buffet, where you can go and you can pick and choose which items you want, and then have this conglomeration of all these different influences on on your plate. You can't truly honor a path unless you're all in. I mean, that's others may disagree with me on that, but that's how I feel. You have, whichever path you're taking, you need to really put your heart into it.
Yeah, and I think
you might come to a point where like it just seems like, okay, this is not fitting my path anymore.
Yeah.
And then you can go and you can investigate other, but that does not mean to bring something from over here, into it. You 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 look at, okay, Wicca no longer fulfills the needs that I have with witchcraft, but yet here's something else that is more in line with where my craft is evolving into. That making that change is fine, but don't treat it like a buffet.
Yeah, and I think what happens is that people end up watching all these witches on YouTube and they read all these blogs and they're maybe a part of social media groups and whatnot, and they think that, oh, this other witch is posting pictures of this working, which I also think is fucking stupid, but they're posting pictures of this working and giving lots of details about it, which is the part that I find stupid. And they're like, oh, that's really cool. I want to do something similar. I want to have that same experience, which we talked about before. Your experience will never be the same. And I've always said to people, I was like, if you're brand new to witchcraft and you don't know what path to go down, like go down the Wiccan path, because it gives you that foundation of this is an altar and these are tools and this is different holidays and so on and so forth. And then eventually, you might outgrow that after, and there's the year and a day. No, do 2 years and 2 days if you have to. But you might outgrow that particular path. And as you said, instead of mixing, you dedicate yourself to the next phase of your path. And people get into trouble when they start mixing and matching and then calling themselves an eclectic witch. And it's like, no, because you don't actually have a path. You're just mixing and matching to fit your needs, which in a lot of cases is very disrespectful to a lot of other people's paths. And somebody on YouTube who used to go by Rotten Rabbit, I don't know what she goes by now, but she used to go by this, and in one of her live videos, she had stated that, because somebody had asked, I'm into Wicca and I want to get into hoodoo. Can I do the two together? And she was like, no, you would never. You keep church and state separate. Like,
Right.
If you want to be a Wiccan, be a Wiccan. If you want to practice hoodoo, practice hoodoo. Do not mix the two. And I really wish that, and that offends a lot of people. Like, a lot of people get offended when you say that eclectic witchcraft, at least in my opinion, is bullshit. And they get offended, and it's like, why? Because you're not willing to commit yourself or to follow a path. You just want to mix and match. That's not how, you wouldn't mix Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism, and Islam together. You follow one religion. And then you also touched on the deity aspect. Well, lots of witches on YouTube, myself included, have talked about how, you don't just call on your deity like a pizza delivery service.
Right.
And this concept or notion of deity hopping, 1 week I'll work with Morgan, the next week with Hecate, the week after that I'll work with this deity. It's like, what are you doing? You can't form, would you just friend hop from one person to the other? All you're really doing is having a one-night stand with these deities. And deities don't like that. By the way, I have a dream to tell you about. I have a dream. I want to go off topic for a minute.
Oh, geez. Okay.
It's kind of
there's something you want to say on live chat.
Well, it's been bothering me, and I wanted to talk about it on a YouTube video, but then I was like, and it's relating to deities, because so when you develop a relationship with the deity, like the goddess, and you piss off the goddess will give you dreams. And the dream that I had, I was trying to guide this semi. I was on foot, and I was telling the semi to go across this ditch, which they would so get stuck in, and onto this other road. And he did. And then I went down this road that was really steep and turned and went around. And where it went around, it was all flooded out by this swamp or whatever. and I was swimming, trying to figure out where this road goes. And I'm holding my phone and my vape like above the water. And then I'm trying to get back onto this road to go back up this hill. And I can't climb. It's like the road is worn rubber that you can just pull apart piece by piece. And so then my feet get stuck and I get sucked under, and I hear this voice that says it's the wizard's offering or something, and my feet can't get out of this thing. So, and it was one of those dreams where it feels so fucking real, you don't know if you're dreaming or living it. And so I just let myself go back into the water, and I knew I was gonna die because I couldn't get out. And I was like, I closed my eyes and I was like, wake up. And then I woke up in bed, and I was feeling around and I was like, no, I'm in bed. And then the entire day, this dream stuck with me to the point where I was afraid to go to sleep. Okay, I was afraid. I was afraid. But my point is with that dream thing is that your deities will have specific types of relationships with you and offer you dreams and give you visions. And if you're just deity hopping, you're not going to experience those types of things. Now, mine was terrifying because making PMS jokes is not funny at all, which I've learned twice now. But yeah, I guess that was my point, and I wanted to share my dream.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I look at too with the eclectic part of it, you know, deity hopping and all the rest of it, is that are you able to truly show respect and pay homage to that? You know, people who think that they see something on YouTube or in a post or somewhere about hoodoo, about a working that was done with hoodoo, and they're like, I want to try that. You know, it's new, it's exciting. It you know, the way the person described it, you know, working and all that may have sounded really exciting to them. But what they don't take into account is how long did that person study to be able to do that properly?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mean properly as in, you know, following like a recipe of detail of how, you know, step by step, you know, because you know yourself, there's no such thing as step-by-step instructions on how to do workings.
There's not. And if anybody tries to say they are all full of bullshit.
Right. And but you know what I mean though. I mean, you know, there's things, you know, there's the relationship, there's the knowledge of what works together, what doesn't work together, as far as the items that you're using. Knowing the reasons behind why you use certain items and certain spells, all of that, it takes time to study that. And if you're just being like a little magpie gathering up glittery objects on YouTube to add to your path, are you actually taking the time to study? Okay, I like that working, but why did they use these things?
Yeah.
You know, what was the purpose behind it? But also too, you know, it's just the well, I know from, I like it with the Native Americans, if you appropriate their stuff, they get quite testy, a lot of them, especially your more traditional. They get very testy about it because of the fact that, you know, that is, to them, spirituality isn't a once in a while thing.
Yeah.
It encompasses their entire life. You know, they're paying honor and you know, they see the world differently than we do, you know, through their spirituality.
Yeah.
And so it's actually insulting to them for you to do that.
But people don't understand. People just want what is new. Like when you were talking about the hoodoo thing, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, like they don't take the time to read. And there's plenty of books out there on hoodoo and how to practice it and like where it came from and its roots and slavery and all that stuff. And people don't care about that. Like it pisses me off to no end. And I made a video about this. When people try to do hoodoo and they want to leave elements like the Bible and the saints out and say, yeah, you can practice hoodoo without that. Now, there are, in a lot of traditional witchcraft, there are similar elements. Like, yes, there's jar magic. Yes, there's, there's bottles and stuff like that. But you can't say I'm doing a honey jar spell and it's hoodoo influence, but this is purely witchcraft. Because once you bring the word hoodoo into it, you are already taking that concept of a honey jar spell from hoodoo and placing it into your own craft, which means you're appropriating hoodoo, and you're also mixing your path together when you should be practicing them separate. There are honey jar spells in witchcraft, and they are very similar to hoodoo, but if you look up the actual way to do a honey jar spell in hoodoo, it's very different than what what a witch would do. Like, we wouldn't pray over it. We wouldn't, read certain psalms or call on certain saints or whatnot. We would do it, with our god or goddess or whatever the case may be. And while it's very similar, it's also very different because one comes from, a set tradition, and the other one, comes from the way that witches would do it. The problem is that on YouTube, everybody's mixing and matching, so you don't know if the honey jar spell that Billy is doing on YouTube is hoodoo influenced or if it's actually something that has nothing to do with hoodoo at all. And so, like, I would almost argue that YouTube is a horrible place to try and learn witchcraft in a lot of aspects because everybody's mixing and matching and everybody's jumping on a bandwagon. If a popular witch does X, every motherfucker does X.
Yeah. And, and it really, you may have some limited success doing that, but long term, where is it going to be?
Yeah.
If you're just borrowing from if someone sees a spell here, a spell there, different videos, and they base their craft on that, and that, to me, their craft is weak.
Yeah.
Because they've not put the study into it.
So when we talk about study, what does that mean to you? Like, does that mean book research? Like, what does that mean?
I hesitate to say too much about book research because you have to be able to trust the author.
Well,
there's a lot of BS out there.
Yes.
And that, but there is, but like, I've heard you mention it, the whole thing about just get a general book about herbs that talks about how to grow them, how to harvest them, how to maintain them, how to use the herbs, both either culinary or medicinal, and then start, looking for really good resources for the magical, but also too, just looking at the plant, the herbs and things. Taste them. Are they bitter? Are they sweet? Are they, what the plant itself, is it like a does it have thorns and things that you can incorporate into something that you want to irritate somebody or agitate somebody, or maybe like those little pod type thistles that stick to your clothes when you walk and through some brush.
Yeah.
And that, they can either, they can be used to attach, but they can also be used to irritate and to poke and prod and, get under somebody's skin, there's a lot of ways to use it. But, look at the properties of the plant. What does your intuition tell you? And a lot of people, I think, forget to really listen to their intuition. They are so wrapped up in, this book says that it's this way, so therefore it must be this way, or this website or this video says this is how it is. So, and they must know what, they've got a lot of followers, so therefore they must know for sure. But you have to look at the intuition, because, if someone uses a plant in a way that's unfamiliar to you, are they using it that way because that's part of their path? Or are they using it that way because they were misinformed? Or are they using that way because it's something that they had learned elsewhere. You don't know. And when you study, though, you gotta look at all aspects. You have to look at books. You have to look at research, and then you also need to study through your spirits. They'll teach you a lot if you have yourself open to them.
Yeah, which a lot of people see. I run into this on like the Facebook groups and whatnot, where a lot of people don't. They're always asking questions about how do I know how to do this or what is this plant for? And it's like, well, what is your spirits telling you? And they're like, I don't work with spirits. It's like, are you even a witch? Like, if you're not working with, and I'm like, okay, what does your god or goddess say? And they say, oh, I don't work with that. I'm like, what do you work with? And they're like, just my own energy. I'm like, what is your gut telling you? And they're like, well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, maybe you should learn to listen to these things and maybe some of the spirits that come around, because while yes, you can do witchcraft without spirits and entities, it's also, they're there to help you. They're there to teach you. They're there to guide you. They're there to walk with you and whatnot. They are the best teacher for you. I mean, I have a lot of herbs and resins that, the book says to do X, but the spirits say to do Y, and I go with the Y because, in a lot of instances, when I first started, it was all, what does Scott Cunningham say to do? And I mean, that was the only teacher I had. But as my path has evolved, and I've let in more of these entities and whatnot, it's just like, okay, there's like a whole new way to do this. Like, I have a spell that I have to do tomorrow, and it involves cat shit. And a lot of people would never, use cat shit for anything in a spell. They think it's gross, they get rid of it. And it's like, if you want a relationship to turn to shit, use literal shit.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. And, and people don't think about these things. They always think about what does the Lady Grave Dancer say to do? Or what does Ember Honeyraven say to do? Or what does this other witch say to do? Or what does this book say to do? Or, it's like, well, what do your spirits say to do? Or your entities or whatever it is you work with?
Yeah, it comes back to what I describe as the microwave society. People want things quick. They don't want to take time. And it's not everybody, but it's a lot of people. And if you're in that kind of a mindset, you're not taking the time to research things. You're not taking the time to develop that relationship with the spirits or deities, if you work with them. And I really don't know. I don't know how effective they can really be in the long term.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just going to follow the herd, you're never going to get anywhere. You have to be that person that stands out and is like, this is my path. This is how I do my craft. If you don't like it, that's your problem, but this is how I do it. And everybody, that's the other thing that I was also going to say with that microwave society is that all of these Wiccan books and like spell books and whatnot that you can buy at your local bookstore on Amazon, they have a step-by-step instructional guide. Even the oils and the tinctures in them have step-by-step and a perfect measurement of what you need to put in there. And it's like, why not just go with your gut feeling? Like, nobody wants to take the time to develop relationships with spirits or themselves or astral travel to talk with their guides. Everybody wants the answer right now. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. The witchcraft does not work that way. Like, if the mystical world worked that way, every time a Christian prayed for something, they would have it instantly.
Yeah. Yeah, but then it goes back to what you're always talking about the, doing the mundane.
Which nobody wants to do.
Yeah.
Like, even today, my friend who I'm doing the spell for, she had asked me, she's like, is there a way to give this guy feelings for me? And I was like, well, there's a come back to me spell. There's like, planting feelings. And she's like, no, I want him to make all the first moves. I was like, it doesn't work that way. Like, if you're not willing to put in the effort, why am I doing it?
Right.
Even the Muslims don't want to do the work.
Yeah, it's, but I don't see how you can really do the craft without doing the work. But that's my opinion. Not every, and if it don't agree, and that's okay. That's their issue.
Well, to be completely bluntly honest, you cannot do the craft if you're just going to spend your whole life with both feet in the magical world. Because I've even said this in videos before, where if you have both feet in the magical world, it is easier for another witch to attack you. It is easier for for something to attach to you. It is easier for you to become literally insane. Whereas, and a prime example of that is Lady Gravedancer did a video a while ago on why she had an exorcism. And she had talked where she was doing nothing but negative magics towards anybody who would even look at her cross-eyed. And she had both feet in the magical world. And basically entities would attach to her and she'd step away from the craft. And, now looking back, she says, I've got 1 foot in the magical world and 1 foot in the mundane world. And, when you have that balance, when you put that time and that energy into, doing your job and also making sure that that job sticks around, it's harder for somebody to fuck with that. It's harder for somebody to for something to mess up. It's harder for things to attach to you because you are planted in both worlds. A magician can't just be in the magical world. They have to be in both places or they're going to become very unbalanced very quickly. And again, people don't want to hear that. People want the answer now.
Yeah, well, it also goes goes right on along with the line that, there's people who think that if you do witchcraft, that you're constantly doing witch stuff all the time.
Oh yeah,
that's not necessarily the case,
Yeah, I had talked about how, Amber Honeyraven, and I kind of disagree at this point. She brought up how, everything, maybe for her, everything she does is some form of witchcraft, like witchy. Like it's not making a spell or, whatever, but it's witchy to her. I don't think that everything we do is witchy because, as I said to you, if everything we did witchy, then me taking a shit is a really great cleansing spell. It's not everything we do is witchy. Just because we light an incense doesn't mean we're lighting it for the god or goddess. We might be lighting it just because we like the smell. Just because we might, take a sage stick and go around the house doesn't mean it's witchy. I mean, it might be cleansing, so that might be witchy, or it just might be you like the smell of sage. So, I don't understand where this notion that some people on YouTube have that everything is witchy, because not everything is witchy. Because if it was all witchy, again, with the both feet in the magical world and the unbalanced part.
Yeah. Well, I know my great grandmother, she was a great example for me of the fact that, she lived her life, you would never have known that she was a witch, except people knew that she had a knowledge.
Yeah.
And she was able to do the folk healings and other things. And she, she had a really good balance with it, the most, she raised a lot of her own plants, or she went out on hikes in the woods and gathered what she needed. And, some people, you can consider that to an extent witchy if you're gathering things that are only used for that purpose, that you're doing stuff toward your craft. But it's not like, it's like I put in a blog, it's not like we stand around stirring the cauldron 24 hours a day.
I mean, if we did that, we'd be rich. Cancer would be cured. Africa wouldn't be poor. There would be no Donald Trump in the White House. If we were all doing witchcraft 24/7, the world would maybe be a better place. And I put maybe in quotes. But the other thing that kind of bugs me, and this isn't directed at anyone specific on YouTube, but it seems like everybody has to have an altar. And it's not just an altar. It has to be, in plain sight. And I mean, I'm guilty of this, but I have an altar and it's a working altar. But 9 times out of 10, if you came over, you wouldn't know it was an altar. You would just think it's a place with you know, a cloth on it and candles and crystals. Like you wouldn't even know what it was. But
Right.
everybody seems to have these big, elaborate altars with expensive things, lots of crystals, lots of candles, and they have to have multiples of them. They got to have an ancestor. They got to have, you know, a spirit. They got to have their god goddess altar. They got to have this, that, and the other thing. It's got to be everywhere. And it's like, why? You know, like if you're somebody who wants to practice witchcraft, but you live with a roommate who's deeply Christian, I mean, a nondescript candle in your room, you know,
Yeah.
that could represent your god or goddess, and no one would ever know. But we live in this society where everything has to be big and elaborate and on Instagram and YouTube, and everybody has to know that. And you talked about how when you start to show these things off, you give people a hook, a grasp in order to.
Right. Yeah. You know, there's, you know, when that's one reason why, for example, in any videos that I do, I will never be showing my tools. If I show a tool, it's never going to be the one that I use
Yeah.
for my workings, because and then I'll never show an altar, because one, I don't keep an altar out all the time. Anyway, when I'm doing a working, I get out what I need and do the working. But, you know, my grandmother never had an altar. Her mother never had an altar, but that didn't make them less of a witch.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, you know, it's just one of them things where it's not a necessity, but I think that the altar, in a way, can be considered a tool for some, because it gives you that place like, okay, when I'm in this place, this is where this is where my thoughts should focus. This is where, you know, it's like their little escape place where they can shut out the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think if you're using it for that purpose, that's great. You know, if that's what you need. But will your spell be less effective if you didn't have all that stuff? No. I don't believe it's the altar that gives energy to your spell, and that, you know, as far as, like, you know, the bigger your altar, the more powerful your spell is going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that, but when you're sharing your altar, when you're sharing your tools, if you share too much of a spell that you're doing, anyone who really knows what they're doing can watch you, listen to the words you're using, and they can really mess with you if they wanted to.
Yeah.
You know, you're giving them that opening, and that's something you don't ever want to do.
Yeah. And I mean, when I show my working altar and I show the stuff that I'm doing at it, unless it's me and you in like a private chat and I need to watch the flame to make sure that my house doesn't burn down, 9 times out of 10, I will move that working to a private altar that I have in my room and watch TV in there or work in there or whatever, so I can make sure my house doesn't burn down. But, you know, like, those are very few times where, you know, I never keep really anything on the altar because, you know, we live in this age where everybody wants to throw magical feces at everybody else, and it's like, I don't want to deal with that fuckery. And yeah, there's things you can do to protect your spell, you know, salt around it or whatever around it to protect it from people trying to fuck with it. But if you're the type of person on YouTube who's like, I conjure the god and the goddess to imbue this spell with magical properties to get me money, like, first of all, you've shown off all the stuff that goes into that spell. You've shown off how to make that spell. And then you've just said all the words. And anybody who's competent enough, which I am going to go on a wild limb here and say few, if any, on YouTube are even competent enough. I can name them on one hand who probably are, but wouldn't waste their time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they can fuck with that. They can destroy it. They can turn it back on you.
Yeah. And and it's even, to the point where it's like there's it's kind of like the saying about if you're never allow a witch into your home.
Yeah.
Okay. When through the social media, through the videos and things like that, you are allowing people into your home, but there's a way to help control it, to where you're not giving too much away.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to ask yourself. How much am I giving away that could come up around and bite me later?
Exactly. And I don't think people realize that. I think they want to be on YouTube, they want to be in the spotlight, they want people watching them. They think if they show more, people are going to be more interested. And I mean, I did that in my early videos, but I quickly learned that, we have to keep some things, how a woman takes her purse and she just sticks it right in her bosom. I mean, you got to keep some things close to the chest. You can't just be flashing your tatas all over the internet.
Yeah. And you do have to be really careful with especially when it comes to your workings. And you have to treat them as being something sacred.
Yeah.
And if it was something sacred, you would not be throwing it out there for everybody to see.
Well, that's like that video I just recently did. I can't remember when I did it, but a video I did on this woman on social media who was saying something about how someone was shit talking their group. And she's like, oh, you enjoy spreading gossip? Well, enjoy trying to get yourself out of a shut the fuck up spell. And I even commented on that, and I was like, the fact that you've had to put up this on social media makes me question, like, how much of a witch are you? And I'm not meaning that in an insulting way. I'm meaning that by, if you were as powerful as you try to make yourself sound, you wouldn't be putting this on social media. You would deal with it. And, if you wanted to show somebody how to do a shut the fuck up spell, you might do it and drop a few hints, but you wouldn't outright say, this dumb bitch who's, gossiping and now has a shut the fuck up spell on her, I've cursed 2 people, and I've done it on my YouTube channel, but I never said who they were or what involvement they had in my life. I just I did it as an educational thing, and then afterwards, really put the fucking intentions in. And on that side note, I learned, that one of them, their life has gone to complete shit. I mean, joys of cat shit in a spell. I mean, joys, okay? So, I mean, there are just some things that you want to keep quiet, and, you might show a little bit for educational purposes, but you want to keep most of it quiet. And, if that person comes back and is like, oh, my life is going to shit, just sit there and smile. Just like, You wonder why your life going to shit, motherfucker.
Well, that's why, when you and I've talked about, when you're trying to convince me to do videos, and I'm like, I struggled with that, and I still am. Hence the reason why I don't have very many.
You haven't seen it.
And it's because of the fact that, I do like to hold things pretty close.
That's fine.
And there's a fine line between sharing information for education and showing just that little bit too much.
And that's where people walk over the line. They don't know, in any spell that I do that I'm showing on YouTube that, I might mention is targeting somebody, whether it's in my life or on the internet. If it's on the internet, I never usually will say it's on the internet. I will usually hide it or mask it behind, this is somebody in my real life, so that way nobody really knows. And even by me talking about it now, they still will never know, was this spell that you did 6 months ago against, some witch that you were having a falling out with, or was it against a person in, the real world? You'll never know, because A, The internet has a block button. Learn how to fucking use it, people. If you don't like somebody, block them, move on with your life. There's no need to be doing spells on some bitch who lives in Missouri. Like, come on now, right? Like, they already live in misery.
Well, you know, I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think a lot of it comes into your maturity in your craft, not maturity as in your age or, you know, it's more the maturity in you learn to really think about, is it really worth my energy to go after this person, or are they such a train wreck they're going to mess themselves up? You know, you pick and choose, and you just don't let things bother you as much. But there's so many hotheads,
yeah,
and so many that are so easily offended that if you look cross-eyed at somebody, they're gonna start saying, "Oh, I'm gonna do this to that person,"
yeah,
and it's all silly. You know, it's you know there is a lot of things that I let slide.
yeah.
You
And
know, in my life, and
yeah,
because it's like, you know what, that person, the way they behave, they're going to do it to themselves. I don't need to do anything to speed up the process because they're on the way themselves.
yeah. And you can generally tell this. Like, this has been a very tough lesson for me to learn because I'm very reactionary as opposed to
Really?
shut the fuck up. Shut the
You?
fuck up.
You?
Zip it.
Oh, come on. You're the most calm, placid person I've ever met.
Oh, honey, I'm placid. Oh, I think you said placid, but I'm never of those. But no, there's this thing where, you know, it's a hard lesson to learn because our lives as witches in social media are on the internet. Like, our witchy lives are on the internet everywhere. We want to share, we want to connect, we want to make friends. And I've got more enemies on both sides of the fucking fence than I know what to do with. But I have learned over the last 6 or 7 months that there are just some bitches who are such a train wreck that, like you said, if you look at them, they'll be all, you know, making spoof videos, talking shit, this,
Right.
that thing in their groups, spying on you, making fake YouTube accounts. And their lives are already a train wreck. So what's the point of, you know,
Yeah.
a little more train wreck towards them? Just block, move on, and, you know, accept that some people just don't like you. Some people want to spread shit about you, and other people want to throw feces at you, thinking it'll cling to you, but it bounces off you and sticks to them.
Well, you know, I, a lot of it I find funny because it's like, you know, you're acting like that, you know, going, you know, getting easily offended, getting your knickers in a knot about stuff. And it's like, you know, when they start acting like that, to me, I see the hilarity in a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do you realize, you know, that the more you do that, the the more you're gonna lose the respect of other people.
If they had any respect to begin with.
Right. But you know, but there's, you know, if you had someone acting like that and it's being foolish, then okay, how seriously can I take this person?
Yeah.
And you know what they're trying to teach. And so you just let it go. You know, I mean, there are times when a working has to be done, and you do it, and rarely will I talk about them.
Yeah. Like, that's the other thing, is that everybody wants to share every little aspect of their craft. It's like if they sneezed and it felt witchy, they have to share it. And it's like, you know, witches of old, you know, first of all, if you walked into their house, you would never know they were a witch. And second,
Right.
if your life started to turn to shit, you know, and it was them who did it, they're never going to talk about it. Like, whatever happened to this idea of keeping things close to the chest? I mean, I know you've talked about struggling with how to do YouTube videos, but there's so much more to do other than sharing spells and rituals and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of witches do that, and I myself do that, but I've learned how to keep a lot of that, you know, off the internet, even though it's technically on the internet, if that makes sense. Like a good example, I put intentions in, but you don't hear me saying shit, because that's all I hear. That's not coming out of here.
Well, also too, you know, there's, you know, you might be showing the process of how to dress a candle, how to, or do, how to do a sigil, how to, you know, doing the engraving in candles, or, you know, or whatever, but you're not giving them 90% of the information of what you are doing when you're doing it as a working.
Yeah, you maybe get like 10 or 15%. And
yeah, I mean, you're basically showing the process. Okay, if you're wanting to dress a candle, here's one way to do it.
Yeah.
But you're not going all in and saying, okay, I'm going to do this spell on so and so. This is why I'm putting in. This is why I'm putting it in there, and then speaking the words as you're putting your intentions into something, to where somebody, you know, watching could actually make that spell bounce back on you.
Yeah, there's another witch that I used to watch, and all she seems to do is curse people, but she would do exactly that. She would say, you know, these people in my life who are fucking with me and my family, you know, we're gonna do this curse together. And she would speak in, and then she would say, you know, I curse, and then she'd go quiet to leave out the name, and then be like, you know, I want to burn so and so, and blah 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 blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, I consider myself a competent witch. So if I really wanted to, I could reverse that entire thing and put it back on you. Like, you know, these are the thoughts that go through my head when I watch somebody doing something on YouTube, is like, you know, like, how easy would it be to throw this back on you? And there's a lot of, you know, well-versed witches out there who will show spells on YouTube, but they do it in such a way where it would be difficult, if not to say impossible, to throw it back at them.
Yeah. And that's one area that I'm really not really feeling inclined to share a whole lot.
Well, you don't have to.
Of workings, because I feel there's enough people out there doing it anyway. But then there's also the fact that, you know, I know I shouldn't let it bother me, but it does.
Well, like, see, that's why I said
the fact that, like that, you know, I being told that because I do things the way I was raised, being taught to do them, you know, doing things old school, that people don't want to learn that. It's irrelevant today, and people don't want to learn that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, if I do these videos, you know, is there going to be any interest in them at all?
Well, see,
because everybody wants the pretty altars. Everybody wants the, you know, the there's a lot of stuff that goes on the videos that I don't do.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and so mine would be pretty basic.
Yeah, but
I just don't know if that'd be something that'd be interesting.
But see, if you look back at some of Ember Honeyraven's older videos, even her newer videos on her channel, she never shows an altar. She never does a spell. She never makes a candle or makes an incense or anything like that. Like, she might, but she doesn't really. Like, they're very few and extremely far between. She talks about her life. She talks about the craft. She talks about, you know, theory-based stuff, what books she's reading. Like, she'll do book reviews. There is so much more to show other than just doing spells. I think in the last year, my channel has gone from doing lots of workings to a lot more discussion-based stuff, as opposed to the craft, because a lot of my craft is kept secret. Like, a lot, and a lot of it they've already seen. Like, who needs to see me do another money spell for the 18,000th time? You know?
Yeah.
Who needs to see, you know, so on and so forth. I mean, the one I was talking about, I'm going to show tomorrow, because that uses cat shit. But the other, you know, like, it's something new. But at the same time, if I were to take out all of my practicing videos, there's still enough content there that people would totally be interested in. You just have to, you know, take a chance and put it out there. So you don't have to do the rituals and the spells and the tools and the altar. You could just do like the theory-based stuff. Like, who says you have to put a spell on YouTube to call yourself a witch? Like, if people's like, oh, you've never put a spell on YouTube, you must not be a real witch, or you must be an armchair occultist. It's like, motherfucker, test me, I will come for you.
Yeah, yeah, you know, that would probably, I'd probably ignore that.
Well, obviously, but you know, I'm the
No,
snarky
but
mom who likes to make sarcastic comments.
I know.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, there's so much more
Yeah.
than just witchcraft. Like, even Lady Gravedancer's videos, like, there's a lot of workings and stuff like that on her channel, but a lot of the stuff she's been posting recently is more, you know, theory related stuff, or talking about interdimensional stuff, or whatever. And you know, you don't always have to be showing a spell or a working. And I think that's the other thing about social media. Everybody's posting pictures of their altars and their candle flames, even when sometimes a candle flame is just a fucking candle flame. Like, calm the fuck down. You know, and people are like doing all this because they think that's what you're supposed to do. But there's so much more to the craft than just casting a spell to make Sally sit on a fucking dick. Put some ghost peppers on that dick. That bitch won't be sitting anytime soon.
Oh, jeez. Well, I'm still thinking about it. Huh?
Your herbal series.
I know. I've got that, but I'm just thinking like, okay, beyond that, see, I'd like to, beyond that, what would I'm just still tossing around some ideas in my head about what I would do beyond that. Yeah, not just the herbal stuff.
What about incense blends? Could you do that? I mean, who the hell would use an incense blend against you?
I'm almost thinking I'm probably one of the only ones that does use a lot of incense magic.
I just burn them because they smell good. Sometimes I'll burn incense as offerings for Boone and Ashtaroth and the goddess, but like, that really depends. Most of the time, the only incense blend that I use is also used in dressing candles and putting circles around things, which is my money stuff. And I mean, that's generally the only time. I mean, I have stick incense that I burn all the time, but that's just because I want to leave my house smelling like I've come out of a witch shop, you know?
Yeah.
Masked with cologne.
Yeah. Well, I just, you know, I don't work only with incense, but I do use it in ways that I really don't see people doing.
So without showing or giving away too much about your craft, you could talk about incense magic.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just have to figure out if I think there's going to be enough interest in that.
Oh, come on. I mean, I didn't think there would be any interest in me when I started because I was just following the Lady Gravedancer. Not in terms of my craft, but in kinds of concepts of videos to do. And then I was just kind of basing my video ideas off of the way, you know, she was doing them at the time. And then I evolved my own channel and became my own preacher man with my throne and my white crown.
Yeah. We'll see.
And then, so how about this notion that everybody and their mother's dog has to spend thousands of dollars on, what's the topic? The fucking topic is all over the place. Twilight Moon, you should know my channel. It is everywhere. Everywhere. And it's even in the title. Stereotypical social media and the craft. Come on now. Twilight.
Yeah.
Twilight Moon. I love you.
But well, I don't think you have to spend a lot to do it. I mean, good grief. I actually spend very little, and
Yeah.
that, but um, living in a place where I can grow stuff helps. Um, but even if I didn't have, if what didn't have the ability to grow it, and that most of what I use is very easy to obtain, through um, either through you know going to the market or going for a walk somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, for me, if I run out of certain herbs that I can't grow or find where I live, yeah, I'll buy them. I mean, I won't lie,
Yeah,
buy them. When I was in Vegas,
yeah.
there was that, that witchy store that I went to, a Botanica, and I bought a bunch of shit. Like
Oh
these,
yeah, yeah, those wax dildos.
they were not wax dildos.
It
They
looked like it.
they were figurines of man and woman. Oh, you mean the giant tall pillar candles, like the big thick black taper candles?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I use those nightly. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it's like, and then the only other time I really spend money on my craft is when I want a new mortar and pestle. And I've got like 40 of them.
I don't have any. I've got I have I got a stone and a river stone that I use.
Well, you also live in the middle of fucking nowhere, so you can find everything. I live in a metropolitan area where money is the main thing that people find. And they find it through a job. And then
Well,
because we live in
yeah.
a capitalist society.
Yeah, well most of the stuff that I buy, like if I have to order online or go to I used to go to that witchy shop.
Oh, I want to come to Oklahoma so we can go there and
But
I can call her out.
that'd be funny. Um, but that place there, other than going there, I'd have to go online to get like tree resins.
Yeah,
But we do have trees around here that do have resin.
yeah.
It's not the frankincense and myrrh and copal, but it's
It's resin.
but it's resin, and it can be used. And and so I have that access, but most of what I use, like I said, is gleaned or grown, and or I can get it at the store. You know,
Yeah.
just about any uh, good market. And and then like there's getting bones and all that other kind of stuff. It's easy to find when you've got you know living out where we do.
Yeah.
You can always find, on a long walk, you can always find something, you know. But I, I don't know. I wonder, when I see, I mean, I don't fault anybody if they have the money to spend on it and they want to collect all that stuff. That's fine. But will you really use all of what you've got?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I went through a phase where I purged a lot of my witchy stuff, herbs, tools, whatnot, because I wasn't using it. If I'm not going to use it, why the fuck should I have it? And,
Right.
and then I'm not going to drop any names, but Mrs. I point my camera at my crystals. She's talked in a couple of her videos about going to the thrift store. And I mean, instead of buying,
Mm-hmm.
a brass cauldron online, you might find something that's similar to a brass cauldron at a thrift store for $7 instead of spending $50 on it, right? So like
Right.
your thrift stores would have, lots of witchy stuff. If you listen, whenever I go into a thrift store, which isn't very often these days, but the goddess will talk to me and be like, I think that would be really great for a spell that you have coming up, or this is an interesting tool to pick up. You know, like it's not, ooh, I want this, I want that. It's always related to my craft in some way, except for my mortar and pestles because I like buying them. But you know, and you know, the shadier side of the internet has taught me, if anything at all, that you don't have to spend tons and tons of money. You know, there are people out there who, yeah, for sure, they've got the income and they like to buy all of the stuff from New Age Imports and Mountain Rose and so on and so forth, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you're a new witch or you're on a budget or you don't have a lot of money, you know, like you said, go for a walk, go to a thrift store, go, you know, out in nature, try and grow stuff, use the stuff in your kitchen. I mean, the spice aisle at your local grocery store is pretty fucking comprehensive these days. I mean, there's a lot of shit that you can get there.
Yeah, and you know, and what message that I'm hoping that people do not get from watching the videos of people who have massive amounts of everything is that you have to have that in order to be able to be effective as a witch.
Well, there's also the jealousy aspect, right? So, like, they see that and they think I have to have this, or they see that and they're like, oh, this bitch has this and I don't, so I'm going to be a cunt in their comment section. And it's like, no, they have the money. You know, they can get their nails done. They can buy all the stuff they want. If you have that money, go out and buy it. If you don't have that money, don't go out and buy it. Like, I don't think anybody directly gets the message that you must have frankincense in order to do spell A. I think people perceive that because they see that it works for another witch.
Yeah. But I just, I'm just thinking about, new people coming into it.
Yeah.
And they see something, oh, in order for me to do a spell like that, I have to have X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
When maybe they have something in their kitchen cupboard, like, for example, that would do just as much.
Yeah.
And not to detract from the magical aspects of the ingredients that are used in spells, because they do have magical properties to them, but there is a large percentage of the energy in the spell that is what actually fuels the spell and gets it focused and everything. That comes from the practitioner, not from the ingredients.
Exactly.
And that's something that I don't think enough people really put out there.
Yeah. And like, the thing is that if you have, let's say you're a millionaire, right? And you have the fancy statue of Hecate and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't make you any more of a witch than somebody who's not a millionaire and has a candle that represents Hecate, right? Like, it's not about X, Y, and Z. It's about you and your relationship and the energy that you're putting into your spell. Because as you said, yes, these herbs have magical properties. It's really you at the end of the day.
Yeah. Now here's one to throw out there, and it's probably gonna step on some toes, but I know you don't care about that.
Controversial on my channel finally.
What?
I said, are you gonna get controversial on my channel finally?
Well, you've been egging me on to do it.
Well, of course.
I know. Okay. How much of the accumulation of stuff and doing the witchy haul, showing, oh, look at all these neat things I got. I mean, I'm not against witchy hauls, but there's some that seem to do them more often than others. And I'm wondering how much of that overall, I mean, I'm not really even thinking of anybody in particular, but how much of that do you think is someone is trying to say, look at all I've got, I'm a real witch? They use it as a validation.
Oh, a lot of people. I can't, the people that I have on my hand that I consider a real witch would not do that, but the other people in the community who do tend to do that or have love mail coming every other week because they've been begging for it, or they buy a lot of stuff and you watch their altar explode. um, you know those people, in my opinion, aren't really in the craft. They're on the internet looking to make friends, and by having friends, you have validation, and by having validation, you have to buy stuff to put yourself on the same level. Now, I'm not gonna lie, when I first started, the first video that I saw on YouTube in the witchy sphere was Lady Grave Dancer doing a room tour. And she had jars and she had candles, drawers full of candles and incense everywhere and drying stuff. And that was really inspirational. I wanted all of that. But I didn't go out and buy it. And I didn't. And when I did start to accumulate things over time, it didn't make me feel more of a real witch, or like, by having all of this, I can fit in on YouTube. In the beginning, it was more about getting some tools and experimenting, because I was making lots of incense, right?
Yeah.
So, getting the tools and experimenting with things and learning properties and learning how things work and so on and so forth. And I wanted to experiment with tons of things. And for me, it was about experimenting. But for some people, I think it's all about that. I want to feel validated. I want to feel like a real witch. So I will surround myself with all of this stuff. When in reality, we wouldn't know what to do. I mean, the vast majority of us would not know how to practice the craft if we didn't have access to these stores. We wouldn't know how to cast a spell. We would, like, if we didn't have our green candles for money spells, we wouldn't know how to cast a money spell. We wouldn't think we could use a tea light candle that's white as a candle for a money spell. We wouldn't we wouldn't know what to do without half the herbs we have. And it's like, what the fuck happened? Because as I've said in earlier videos, witches of old, they had beeswax candles or wax candles, or even as I think you showed on your Facebook or something about taking bacon grease and using that as like making a candle out of that. Like, this is something you have on hand, because people who cook accumulate grease and they store it.
Right. And it always as long as it's a grease that'll solidify, you can burn it.
Exactly. And people would never think of that. Or like even the olive oil, you put a little bit in a jar with one of those wick things and you have a candle. And it's like, people don't see that. They see the colors and the fanciness and they think this is how you practice witchcraft. There isn't a channel I can think of where they don't mention a colored candle for a purpose. And I'm like, whatever happened to just plain white, cheap, dollar store or grocery store candles, dressed up in a little bit of oil and a tiny amount of herbs that you buy in the same grocery store, and the same oil from the same grocery store. Like, like we wouldn't.
Oh, well, honey, don't you remember? I think I told you, and that someone told me that because I just use whatever candles I have on hand and I don't use a lot of fancy stuff, and that I'm not a real witch. I have no power.
You don't have any power. Trust me, I know this. No, but like, see, stuff like that is really fun.
But see, that's the stereotype that's starting to come out. That you have to have all this stuff. You have to mortgage your house to get what you need in order to be able to be a real witch, or to have others view you as a real witch. And it's like, well, first off, I don't need their validation. I've been doing this for about 40 years.
Oh, damn.
I don't need their validation, but I find it really disconcerting that there might be somebody out there that kind of thing could be said to, and it would be so discouraging to them, because what if they're in a position where they can't go out and buy the colored candles or whatever, but I mean, you want to talk about, this is kind of a weird one, but here you go.
I don't remember
When
this.
you're really, no, but when you're really in a tight situation where you really, really need to do a working and you don't have a candle to burn,
Oh yeah.
and that, okay, as long as you have something you can use for a wick, and that, put it in a little jar or contain, or even like a an old soup can or something,
Yeah.
and then and fill it with lard or fill it with vegetable shortening,
Yeah.
and that'll burn. You
I've
know,
I've made candles like that in the past when I have
yeah.
candles because I have lard on hand. I've got lots of bacon grease. I've even made one of those bacon candles, and I was like, ooh, this works. And like, you know,
Told you.
and even if you're at the grocery store and you buy that coconut oil that solidifies,
Yeah,
there you fucking go. And
yeah.
well,
Well, my grandma actually took when she would make orange juice, or she would be making some oranges, scooping them out for a fruit salad or something.
yeah,
She would just cut the a sliver off the top of the orange, and then scoop out all the meat, all the flesh out of the inside of it, the
yeah,
actual fruit, and then she'd let that peel dry a bit, and she'd fill that up with stuff to burn
yeah.
and turn that into a candle. Oh, it smelled great when the oils from the orange hit that wax, there's so many ways you can get around it. But if you told someone, oh well, I'm using this candle I made out of an orange, or if I made it out of bacon grease for this spell, they'd be looking like, are you insane?
Exactly, because we live.
But that's the old way. You use what you had. You didn't have everything. I mean, I wonder if how many people today on YouTube that are doing all these videos, what they would do if tomorrow morning they woke up and it was like it was 50 years ago.
They'd have no idea.
But see, the thing is, if you study and you learn as much as you can about the plants and everything, you can. And
Yeah.
now, but how many have studied enough to know how?
See, now I want to go and take one of my lemons and make this type of candle. You have given me an idea. I'm going to take a lemon
Uh,
and thread a wick up through the bottom so that the metal piece is on the outside, and then fill it with lard. And
well,
use
if you do that, what you got to do is you got to put you have to take the lemon, the fruit part
yeah,
of it out
yeah,
of there, and then just stick the wick down inside. You don't want the bottom of the wick to be on the outside, because as the grease melts, it could come out the bottom and
yeah,
make a mess.
this is true. I didn't think about that. But no, this is a really interesting idea. I want to do this now
Well,
because
something else that I used to do all the time is take a something like even like uh, a muffin tin, you know, your cupcake type muffin tins,
yeah.
and that put wicks in those and fill them up with your wax, and you got your candles without having to go and buy the fancy molds.
Well, the other thing you can do, well, you would grease those up so that the wax doesn't actually stick to the sides, or put something in there so the wax doesn't stick to the sides. But
Oh, parchment paper, or even those cupcake liners,
yeah,
but then just peel them off before you burn them.
yeah, and then you've got like cupcake candles. And like people don't understand this. People want, and we're not harping on anybody who has the money and the means and wants to do
Oh
that.
no.
You do that. But like we're talking about the people who are brand new to the craft and come on somebody's channel who's doing the hauls or whatever, and they think they have to have this. And then we're talking about the people who do the hauls and stuff like that because they want the validation. And I've talked about certain Patreon people who tend to
Hmm.
do this as well, where they beg for money on their YouTube channel. We've talked about this in the past where people come on YouTube and 6 months later they've been doing tarot or oracle or whatever for 15 years, and they've got their Patreon account open and they've got you know, this, that, and the other thing, and everybody, and they've got a store all of a sudden, and it's like how much validation do you need in your craft? Like, do I really need to watch the altar behind you blow the fuck up? And do I need to see all of this shit? Like, how much validation do you need in order to prove that you're a witch? Why can't you just come on YouTube, you know, maybe talk about a herbal series, you know, tag it with some witchy things, and it's like, who the fuck cares? Like, I don't care if you've been practicing for 40 minutes or 5 minutes, or for 40 years or 5 minutes, because, you know, I'm probably going to learn something new and interesting from you. And then you get the people that come on and their altars blow up, and all they do is they talk about bullshit and read out of books and charge money on their Patreon for you to see them read out of a book. And it's like, why, like, what is happening to our community?
I don't know. But then I've never been really active in the community. And that I tried joining a couple of groups different times, and I'm like, I spend about a day there, and I'm like, no, and I leave, you know, because it's like, okay, I am not going to fit in here at all.
Well, you're pretty active in the community if you've been watching me for decades, because I've been on YouTube for decades. And if you've been on my channel, which you are, welcome to the Witchy Show.
Well, it's just, you know, but I mean, as far as like, you know, really being active.
Yeah, I'm
like,
too lazy.
You know, in the Facebook groups and all that other kind of stuff. And I'm just really not. I'm not even that active on my own Facebook page.
No, you're more active than I am. I'll give you that much.
Yeah, but mostly I'm just sharing stuff. I'm not. I don't actually write anything, but rarely.
Really?
I know.
Your paragraphs of text.
Huh?
You're doing your paragraphs of text and your picture about autumn and winter, and I'm like, motherfucker, no. Not on my wall, it won't be. It's going to be summer all year round. And then you put an angry face, and I'm like, and I go into Messenger, and I'm like, seriously?
Well, I thought you did this seriously because the busy bee comment, and then the dancing bee.
No, I did it because of your angry face on my summer to summer.
No, where I live, it's just too damn hot and humid.
I don't like humid. I don't mind hot though. But no, it's like, what the fuck were we talking about?
You went on a bunny trail.
What the fuck were we talking about? We were talking about validation and how people don't need it. And then we were talking about money and how you don't need it. And it's fine if you do have it, do what you want. And we were talking about how people might perceive other people who get hauls all the time as needing that, or those people needing validation. I don't know. I forgot.
Well, look at the color of your hair. It's expected.
Well, okay, my hair is deeply, deeply fried. I mean, at the top, it's like clumped together. Okay, it's clumped. It's so fried.
No, I'm just going for the blonde thing. I think the coloring went into the roots.
My hair is beautiful. There's no white crown, motherfuckers.
I know, but it's affecting your ability to recall things.
Oh, I think that started happening a long fucking time ago. Let's see. What else do we have in here? We can talk about Christian witchcraft.
Okay.
Well, there was this. I wrote this note of grandmother as an example because she lived like the Bible Belt, didn't she?
Yeah.
So, like, did she go to church?
She was a member of a church, but she was definitely one that like you described before, you know, that people would not have known that she was a witch.
Yeah. And I think that's what I mean when I say Christian witchcraft, is that like you might be a member of a church or you might be a Christian or whatever the case may be, but people don't know that you're a witch. It's the whole notion of, you know, going home and taking care of Sally Mae because she made a better fucking cupcake than you did for the church gathering. Well, fuck that bitch. But you know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah.
People.
But some people do it too because, you know, it goes back a long time, you know, to like back at a time when witchcraft was not accepted. and you had to basically keep it under wraps.
I like how you can be a homo in today's society, but and even in a Christian society, but if you're a witch, they hate you.
Yeah.
I mean, they still hate you if you're a homo, but like at least there's a little bit more acceptance because they're like, "Oh, you're just porking my next door neighbor's son." Well, okay, I don't agree. You're going to hell. But the second you say that you're a witch, they're like, "Oh, you must worship the devil and dance for Satan under the full moon naked."
Yeah. Yeah, I love those stereotypes.
But
But
the
but
other,
but I think well, I know you mentioned like with hoodoo, they use the Bible
and they
and
use
that
things like
and
that.
the saints and things. And um I think it's it's kind of confusing to me, the idea of someone being a Christian witch, because it's according to Christians it speaks so much against the Bible, in the Bible about being witches. The Bible says, it's not allowed.
Yeah.
And that, and so if you're a Christian and your book of worship says that witchcraft is evil, how can you be a witch?
See, it does confuse
So
me.
it is confusing.
It is a little confusing. I'm not saying that there aren't Christian witches out there and that you can't be a Christian and a witch. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that at all. But what I
Yeah.
am saying is that I kind of understand where people are a little confused by it, but it kind of disgusts me. We're going to go back to the acceptance thing in a second, but it kind of disgusts me when people are like, that's a fake thing, or you can't be a Christian and a witch, or you're not like a witch or a real witch. It's like, well, why not? I mean, yes, it's confusing because, whatever Bible you read from is all like witches are evil. But at the same time, you also have to realize that it was the King James Bible that turned "thou shalt not suffer a thief to live" into "thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And,
Right.
Moses, you know, mystical there. There's lots of witchcraft references and
Oh
magic
yeah.
references throughout the Bible. And I think that when the witch hysteria and the witch hunt went on, King James basically changed the Bible. And there was the whole Magna Sicardium, or whatever the fuck the book is called, where it was like the witch hunter's Bible and all this other stuff. And,
Mm-hmm.
there was all that stuff, and it never really let up. It just became this thing in modern society where witches are evil and God is good and so on and so forth. But I think that there's room for Christian witches. In fact, there's always been room, because even back when the witch hunts were going on, people would use the Bible. Like they might be reading a passage from the Bible to you, but also cursing you at the same time. And that's what I think of when I think of Christian witches is, they use the Bible and they use whatnot. And I mean, if there's a Christian witch watching and they're like, I don't use any of that, I mean, comment section for a reason. But
Right.
at the same time, it's like, that's what I think of when I think of a Christian witch. I don't, I think we get this, we get hung up on the semantics and what the Bible says and what witchcraft is and all this other stuff. And I
Yeah.
don't think we take the time to understand what their practice is.
Well, one thing that I've, ever since you and I talked about, possibly bringing this up as a topic tonight, I've been thinking about it more. And, when you look at Christianity, or actually any of them where prayer is involved, okay, say there's someone that is sick, and you say a prayer for them to have healing. And that, they say that to pray in faith and your prayers will be answered.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're praying in faith, you're believing that this is going to happen, that the healing is going to manifest. You're
yeah,
praying about it. How is that different than working with our deities and, petitioning and, putting intention into our workings? The
yeah.
only difference is, in the religion, you know, in like Christianity and such, is that you're praying to their God, and that in their way, where in witchcraft, you know, again, you know, like I said, somatics, you know, we're praying to a God, you know, or we're putting, or you know, we're putting those intentions out there, similar to like when a Christian prays, and you know, we have total belief that this is going to work, or we wouldn't be doing the working in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, we have full intent and faith that that's going to work. You know, they have faith that their prayers are going to be answered. There's so many common denominators in that you know, it really, there's, other than the semantics of who you're praying to, and who you're how you go about it, you know, the method and the terminology are really some of the main differences. Yes, you know, they're different. You know, you may be going, you know, working with demons, you may be working with gods and goddesses, and not the Bible, the God of the Bible.
Yeah. And
but the process, there's so many similarities that isn't funny.
Yeah. And I had somebody just say in the chat just now that they've talked with Christian witches who say that they don't use the Bible or any of that. They use Jesus's teachings and whatnot. And I mean, that might be another way to practice. I don't know what Jesus's teachings are, but I guess where I was trying to go with this topic was that we want to be accepted for our path.
Right.
And I've said this before, we don't accept people who go over to Christianity. We don't accept Christians. And we don't understand Christian witchcraft and think it's fake or whatever. And it's like, how is their brand or their path in witchcraft not acceptable, but somebody like myself who is a witch and works with demons is perfectly acceptable? Like, you know, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, it comes down to the whole idea of, you know, there's a lot of people who want to have the respect given to them, extended to them, to allow them to practice their beliefs as they wish.
Yeah.
But they're not willing to offer that same respect to others who believe differently.
Yeah, and I've seen that time and time again in the community.
It's total hypocrisy.
It is, and I've seen that so many times in the community, and it's just like, this is ridiculous. Because as a spiritual person, I mean, yes, I harp on Wicca, and yes, I harp on New Age, but I mean, at the end of the day, if it's working for you, then I'm all for it. I mean, I will support you 110%. But I'm still going to point out things that I find completely ridiculous about it, you know, and give my opinion on it. But I'm not trying to deter you from being a Wiccan or being a New Age person, even though I think New Age is bullshit. I just think I just accept you for what you do, because my craft is not any more powerful than a Christian witch's, who's not any more powerful than a Wiccan's, who's not any more powerful than some New Age bimbo who believes that crystals will cure cancer. Which I also kind of find odd, but okay, if it works for you and it cures your breast cancer, then go ahead. But I think you're going to see a doctor. A head doctor and a cancer doctor. You know, the head doctor for the shrink part, because if see where New Age for me falls apart is when they think that crystals and incense will cure anything. Anything.
Right.
Like, yes, there is a time and a place for homeopathy and crystal healing and Reiki and all that stuff. There is a time for that. But if we use the example of breast cancer, you need to be going to your doctor. You need to be finding out what kind of steps are needed, how far advanced it is, if you can get surgery, if they have to chop off your breasts. if they can just give you radiation, you need to be taking those steps. And I mean, if at the same time, you want to take some herbal supplements to help along the process, talk to your doctor about it. Say, I also want to do some of this homeopathy stuff. I understand that you might not believe in it. I'm so willing to do the radiation and the surgery, but will any of this other stuff interfere with these medications? Because we see this in the media a lot, where people who have certain types of cancer or whatnot want to go the all natural new age route. And that's fine, but you also need to be taking it very seriously because, as we know, breast cancer kills people. So, I mean, your crystal is not going to stop it from spreading to your lymph nodes and killing you. A surgeon might be able to.
Right.
So, yeah. And what else? What other topics? My house is cloudy. Did you know that?
Yeah, I've noticed.
Sitting over here, vaping up a storm, blah, 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 blah. Since we went down the New Age path, I wrote down in our book, Wiccans, stereotypes, no variations to those writings, one way to go.
Huh?
Yeah. So basically, I think what we were talking about when we were writing down these topics is that we started talking about Wiccans and how there's a stereotype among all of them, vast majority of them, basically all of them, that, the threefold law, karma, and all that stuff. And then when you go to read a Wiccan book, whether it's Scott Cunningham, Silver Ravenwolf, don't read Silver Ravenwolf, or whatever the book may be, there's no variations. And it always seems to be my way or the highway. And this doesn't just apply to Wiccans. This also applies to other witches. Because there's a lot of that. My way or the highway. And I think my argument for the witches in the community who think that was that maybe these are older witches who grew up in a time before the internet and their way was the way to go because they're a solitary practitioner, but they're bringing that ego onto the internet and causing trouble.
Well, also too, you have the ones who believe that if you don't have a witchcraft book that backs up the way you're doing something, then you're wrong.
Wait, where the fuck did that come from? Whoever said that? I would love to chat with that person and knock some sense into their brain.
Oh, it's something I've experienced. It's something that's been said to me on more than one occasion.
Ooh, girl, do tell.
Yeah. Oh, just some idiot.
Do you have witchcraft books?
I've got a couple, I think, on my Kindle. Because you talk about Wicca so much, I got them just to read and find out what you're talking about.
Do you follow those books? Do you back craft by following? Oh, woo, girl, you ain't no witch. You ain't not a real witch. I mean, when I started, I would buy the Wiccan books because that's all the bookstores would sell. And when I was, trying to learn how to do a book of shadows, I would skip to that section in the book and find out what they were talking about because that was such a fascinating aspect of the craft to me as a book of shadows. And then, they had other aspects like how to do a ritual. And this goes back to my whole foundation thing. And it was very fascinating. I'm burping all over the place. It was very fascinating to me. And I really like that stuff. But at the same time, I don't follow those books. I've got like probably 20 witchcraft, Wiccan specific books that I don't follow, but I will reference every now and then because sometimes I have to do a ritual and I'm like, how the fuck do I do this again? And even like when the goddess is like, oh, we should do a ritual tonight. I'm like, how do you do a ritual again? And she's like, look it up. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, yeah, there's some instances where I will kind of do a Wiccan-esque kind of ritual, but it's more a reference point. It's not me bringing something Wiccan into my craft. It's like, how do you do this again? It's all about the foundation for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can see the value of that. It's just... But
if you've read one book, you've read them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of noticing that when you read them, they basically they may form their sentences a little differently sometimes, but basically the information is the same.
Yeah, the point is always the same across all of them. And the other thing that I will use as a reference if I want to do a new spell and it's not popping into my brain like it normally does is the 5,000 spell book. I mean, I don't recommend it to new witches, as I've said before, because you can get into a lot of shit. But it is a good reference point if you're trying to come up with like a new spell to do for like a holiday or like a new kind of money spell or a good luck spell. I mean, it's got 5,000 fucking spells in there that cover everything from like cursing to love spells to removing curses to everything. So if you're stumped,
Oh, come on. Why do you have to go to that book? All you have to do is go on Pinterest and you find all kinds of spells.
don't ruin Pinterest for me. Where am I going to get my power of 3 spells from? Now I have to go on Pinterest and find a spell to cast on you. Let's see here. Let's see. Pinterest charmed spells, because that's what everybody copies and pastes into their book of shadows these days. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We got a memory spell. I'm gonna cast a memory spell on you right now on YouTube, live on YouTube.
Sounds like you need one because you can't remember topics.
Bitch. Oh, here we go. Wait, why is this not loading for me? I just wanted to use this memory spell on you. Oh, here we go. Powers and emotions tied to a witch's heart is where it hides. Help her through her stupidity. Bless her with her memory. That rhyme was with your memory.
No, what's funny is most of the spells on Pinterest rhyme.
Oh, they really do. I saw one in a Facebook group, and they totally. I commented and I was like, "So I'm Piper, you can be Prue. Now we just need Phoebe, and we can do this Power of 3 spell." And they got really offended and kicked me out of the group. And it was literally a charm spell, and I was like, "It was a Wiccan group," and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" But see, that spell that I just read, according to every Wiccan, would totally violate the threefold law, because I just gave your memory and helped you through your agony, which is what I replaced stupidity with. So, yeah. I mean, like, you're giving somebody their memory back and helping them through their agony. You're violating their free will. Like, come on now. Like, you've totally just violated the Wiccan threefold law. Like, fuck off.
Okay, you know more about the Wicca aspect than I do. Let me ask you something.
Oh God, she's gonna test my memory now. I'm blonde, remember?
Yeah. What is a spell that a Wicca can do that does not in any way affect the free will of someone else or in some way violate the threefold law?
None. And I'm gonna tell you why none. Because every spell is a stone, and you taught me this. Every spell is a stone that you throw into a pond that ripples and affects everything around it.
Okay, so basically, if a Wicca is going to follow their creed and their threefold law, whatever, their read, excuse me, and threefold law, all that stuff, and that they can't do any spells.
Pretty much no, because
just tied their own hands.
Exactly, because every spell is a stone that you throw. And I had to explain this to my friend today, because she's like, I want you to make all of his other dates turn to shit, but I want to go on a date with him. So I said to her, I was like, by me casting this, I am throwing a stone into his pond, which is going to affect all of his friends. It's going to affect all of his dates, including the date that you want to go on with him. Like, you can't cast a spell without throwing a stone into a pond. I mean, I hate this, but it's totally true. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So if you cast a protection spell on yourself, you are potentially protecting yourselves from other people who, yes, may have a negative thing about them or attached to them, but they can't get close to you because you've protected yourself from that person who might actually end up teaching you valuable life lessons. And, you know, they might be a negative person, but they might actually teach you a whole new outlook on life about something else that isn't as negative as they may be. So, like, in reality, there isn't a spell that a Wiccan can do that doesn't violate the threefold law. Because if you do a money spell, I mean, you're taking away, that's a personal gain thing. That's personal gain right there. You're asking for money to come to you, which might have been going towards somebody else or something else that needed that money, and instead you took it away from them. You might cast a healing spell, but that person's time might be now, or they might need to go through the sickness for something else. Like, there is no spell that you can think of that a Wiccan can cast that doesn't break the threefold law.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. But I thought, you know, maybe you might know of one that they actually can do.
See, they are kind of hypocritical, and I'm so gonna get bitched out for this in the comments, but they're kind of hypocritical because they only use their threefold law to say you can't curse, you can't hex, but they'll bind people, and or they'll bind things, or they'll vanquish, as Pinterest likes to put it, evil, or they'll remove negative energy from their space. I mean, cleansing is probably the only thing a Wiccan can do that doesn't violate their threefold law. But then I could argue that it actually does, because those negative energies that are around you might be leading you, yeah, towards a bad situation, but that situation might completely change who you are and give you a whole new outlook on life. So technically, there is nothing a Wiccan can do at all, ever, except sit on their hands and say they're a Wiccan. I mean, there are rituals and holiday specific things for their Sabbats and whatnot that they can do to honor and worship, and that doesn't go against the threefold law. But in terms of spells, there isn't one I can think of off the top of my head that does not violate the threefold law. And I challenge anybody to give me a spell, because I will argue how it actually violates the threefold law.
I think we just got controversial.
Oh, you think so? Let's check the comment section and see if somebody gave me a spell, because I really want to fuck with people tonight. I would love to hear what a Wiccan's response would be to this. So would I. I mean, I'm pretty sure the only person who could argue with me on this one would be Lunar Wisdom, because she is a Wiccan, but she is also not a Wiccan, but she is a Wiccan. Like, her craft is Wiccan based. So I'm sure she would be easily able to argue with me on this one. But I'm pretty sure even I could argue her under the table. Because there isn't one spell. Like, anybody who's watching right now, I want you to think of a spell and write it down, and I will check the live chat in a minute and see what spell you want to, if it violates the Wiccan threefold law. See, and
yeah, because you can, you know, because if a Wiccan does the whole birthday candles on a cake thing, you know, making a wish and blowing them out, you know, even that is violating, because even that violates, because when you're asking for something, somebody has to contribute to that. Yeah. Either through time, talent, or money.
See, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can't have your Porsche without spending some money on it. Like, nothing comes free in this world. Even the spells that I do, they don't come free. I mean, the other day when I did a money spell to get a company to invest in mine, you know, I had to sit with Boone for an hour and have a conversation and share a drink. I mean, you know, I couldn't just put the intentions in and say, thanks, Boone, call you next week. Like, no, it don't work that way. Like, you gotta put the time and the effort in, you gotta do the mundane, and then there's the whole time to pay up, you know?
Yeah, well, it also goes into what I've talked about, you know, before, about that relationship, you know, and not treating a deity with disrespect of just, you know, I mean, it would be like if you said your guys, hey, come here. got this for you to do, and then they do see ya and you ignore. That would go over real well.
Oh, with the goddess, oh, definitely. I mean, if I've got dreams of drowning and not knowing if it's real or if I'm sleeping, well, yeah, let's try that. It's like, hey, goddess, got a job for you. Get your ass over here. Do it now. Thank you. Gotta go. Bye. Like, no, that just ain't gonna fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, there's, and see, this is another aspect of spell work that a lot of people don't even think of as being spell work. And that if you're working with spirits, deities, demons, whatever, you have to form a relationship to be able to have an effective working relationship.
Well, that's also like, you can't expect your husband to do everything around the house if you're not willing to contribute, and you can't expect your husband to be loving and kind and caring if you're not willing to be loving, kind, and caring back, right? Like you can't.
Oh yeah. I mean, I wouldn't dare be able to act, treat my husband like he's a cabana boy when he's, like, hey, cabana boy, come do this, come do that, and then send him on his way.
Kind of can't do that. Like a cabana boy, though.
Huh?
I said he kind of looks like a cabana boy, though.
Don't he?
Oh, you just jealous because I'll be hitting on your man from all the way fucking over here. Woman, I'll be on a plane. And we will see which one he really wants. I can do things you can only dream of.
Yeah, but I ain't worried because he prefers tacos to sausages.
Yeah, well, he ain't tasted this Mexican yet. Speaking of which, I went to this pub in Banff today, and they were serving Mexican food, and their prices were ridiculous. Like this one lady who was sitting beside me had 4 martinis, margaritas, and they start at $18, and that's Canadian per.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the meal that me and my friend had together came to like $37, and all she had was soup. And I'm like, and the soup started at $12. And I was like, holy shit, these people gouge.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you think that, Mexican food is very rustic and very most of the time very inexpensive to make.
And extremely filling. Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, it's all those carbs.
I gotta put on a few pounds, okay? I'm pregnant. Husband's baby.
You got more issues than you think if you think that.
Oh, you think I got issues? Honey, I got more issues than I know what to do with. I built a house called Issues, and I made a toilet out of tissues.
You got more issues than National Geographic.
National Geographic is pretty damn good, though. I don't know. They might have me beat. They got a new issue every month. Probably.
Oh god.
So we were talking. Oh fuck! Now I forgot what we were talking about. Oh, we were talking about full law and how there isn't a single spell that a Wiccan can do that doesn't violate it. Nobody has given me a spell yet.
Oh my gosh, they're saying you're right.
Fuck that! I want to be wrong. Now, bitches watching us, so I mean, bitches got to start commenting. I want a fucking spell. We were talking about doing magic every day. Okay, devil worshippers, familiars. Everything we do isn't witchy, which we've already covered. Let's talk about
stereotypes. Yeah. About what?
Devil worshippers and familiars. Are you a devil worshipper?
No.
Well, half the shit I work with would be considered a devil, so I'm a devil worshiper.
Sometimes you are.
Okay, you know what? Some of us end up working with a deity or an entity that we can't handle, okay? So we can't only worship the devils.
No, I think that goes into the stereotypes, that if you're a witch, you worship the devil, you sacrifice children, you if you have a cat, or an animal, it's a familiar, and that's Hollywood stereotype. It's not nothing true.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be people who refer to their animals as a familiar, and if they have that kind of a bond with the animal, great. But that doesn't mean that every witch has to have one.
Well, that too. Look, it's all hazy. Look at my haze. That
You're
too.
thinking too hard.
What?
It's all foggy in there because you're thinking too hard.
Why do you think my hair is so white? I thought so hard, my hair color went away.
Went white and stood straight up.
I'm a sage. I'm a sage with deeply fried hair. Like,
but fabulous hair.
Oh, I know, totally fabulous until I comb
fabulous
it.
White.
See, my hair is at the point where if I comb it, I'm cutting it. All I have to do is run a comb through it, and it's shorter. That's it. But
Okay.
people who have these animals, I've seen this so many times on YouTube that I'm like, you need to shut the fuck up already, because there's so many people on YouTube who their dog, their cat, their snake, everything they have just because they're a witch is their familiar. And I'm not harping on people who actually have a familiar and have that bond. I'm harping on those who just started witchcraft yesterday, and the cat that they've owned for 6 years is suddenly their familiar. It's like, I've got two cats, motherfucker. I've had one for 8 and one for 5, and neither of them are my familiar. Are they around when I do spell work? Yes. But that doesn't mean that they're my familiar. Okay, so where is... And people who have these familiars, the ones that say they're their familiar, they don't even take very good care of them. I'm like, the hell wrong with you?
Yeah. The only ability my dogs have ever had
is to irritate your face.
Oh, yeah, my allergies, that. But I really trust their instincts that if they don't like somebody, there's usually a reason.
Sure.
And it's it's like if my dogs don't get along with you, then you and I ain't gonna get along.
But see, that's not a witchcraft thing. And just
no, but it isn't. It's not them being a familiar. It's just
like
personality.
Dogs have a natural instinct to defend and to sniff out and find out, can I trust this person? Are they going to harm my family? Like when you bring a dog into your house, you're a part of a pack. It's
right.
The dog's pack, and they will defend their pack to the core. And just to sidetrack for a quick second, because I was looking at the chat, pot is not legalized in Canada until October 17th. And after that point, I will be stoned in all of my videos. But going back to the familiar thing, no, it's animals have a natural instinct. Like Piper, she hides whenever anybody new comes over because she doesn't know who they are. And as they come over more and more, she gets used to them and comes out. That's not her being like, ooh, you can't trust this person. I'm telling you this psychic witchy abilities. Like, that's just a cat being a cat.
Right. And see, that's why I brought that up about my dogs, is because I've had someone say, oh, well, they're acting like a familiar. And it's like, no, they're acting on instinct.
I just question if people even know what a familiar really is. They see Hollywood, they might read in like a stock hunting handbook about familiars, but do you even really know what a fucking familiar is? Like, Charmed is not a good representation of what a familiar is. I mean, that cat turned into a woman. If my cat could turn into a handsome man, ooh.
Well, that would be a real feat, considering that your cat, your cats are female, right?
One of them is a male, but he's neutered.
Oh, okay.
I guess he would turn into a man with no balls. I actually asked the vet the other day. This was actually last year when I took him in. He's due for another checkup. I gotta get that on the books. But I'm trying to find a new vet because my vet, they declaw animals. they allow, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go to a vet that declaws animals. Like, no. Like, if you ask them to declaw your cat, they will. And I'm like, no, I don't. If I walk into a veterinary office and I say, will you declaw my animal? Your first answer should be no, not yes. It should be no.
Yeah, that's traumatizing to the cat.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're chopping their finger off at like the first knuckle thing, like so that the nail won't grow anymore. And it's like, and then they're like, oh no, there's humane ways where we just take out the whole nail bed. And I'm like, no, that's still horrible. Their natural instinct is to claw things big. Like, you're taking that away from them. You're horrible and mean.
Well, you're also taking away their self-defense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if Piper doesn't,
especially if you get rid of their back claws.
Exactly. And so I took him into the vet and I'd asked, I was like, he's neutered. Did they chop off his dick? And they're like, no, he has one. And I was like, it's just up inside of him. And I was like, oh. Because I thought when they neutered animals, because with females, they'll take out all their baby making stuff, but they still have a vagina. But I assumed that with men, they would just chop everything off. And I was like, so he just has a hole now? What the fuck? But no, he has a dick and no balls.
Oh God. That's funny.
I know, right? So, like, I think that people don't know what a familiar is. I think a lot of people who say they have a familiar don't actually know what a familiar is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see people who don't. Okay. Ethics and witchcraft, conservation, and spellcraft. I got to learn how to write better.
Yeah. Well, you had talked before about someone that had, I think you said that they had done a video.
Oh yeah.
They were out and they were looking for some plant material that they needed, and it wasn't something they had grown themselves. They had gone out and was gleaning.
Yeah.
And they cut off the entire plant. And it's like, oh, I got enough now for a year.
Yeah, it was a juniper.
That is absolutely horrifying to me, because like, okay, what are you going to pick from next year?
Oh, they'll go to the next juniper plant. Yeah, this lady, for those who...
I know, but eventually you're going to run out of juniper plants.
Yeah, like this lady, for those who don't understand, did a video on her YouTube where she wanted to harvest some juniper, like, leaves and berries. And instead of going out and kind of gently trimming the bush to not destroy it and picking the berries that, you know, were ready to be picked, she went and lifted up the plant, exposing the main stem, and sliced right at the stem, so that when she took the whole thing away, all that was left was just barren earth with 2 stems sticking out. And I was like, the fuck are you doing? If you're going to go into the wild and glean, you know, you trim the plant. This is what I do. I take the old growth and, like, not the woody stuff, but the old growth, and I take berries that are ripened if I need them. But I'm not going to, like, you know, and I gently trim the plant so that it might grow bushier or it might grow bigger. You know, I'm not going to fucking take the whole thing.
When I do it in a way that if someone came and found that plant behind me, they would never know I had been there.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
You know, and that, because the thing is, you know, the plants are not there just for you.
They're there for the animals.
There's animal life there. There's, you know, I mean, it's all part of their habitat, their food chain, and all that. And, you know, I know, like with some plants, like for example, white mountain sage, that stuff takes forever to grow a decent sized bush.
Yeah.
And that it takes years. You know, it's a desert plant. They don't grow very fast in their natural area. And that's something that if you take the entire plant, you have just really decimated that. Because in the Native American culture, they believe that if you take the largest plant the oldest plant in a grouping,
Yeah.
they refer to that as the grandmother plant. And if you take that one, the other ones will stop growing.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why, you know, is because the seeds, and if there's any, if there's any seed from it, and that seed has just planted all those other plants around it.
Yeah.
You keep taking those plants away, and the natural reseeding is not going to take place.
Exactly. And
And
then
eventually you're going to not have plants in that area.
yeah, I just remembered this. This goes back to a previous topic, but I had somebody in a group tell me, because I was telling people about how you can use different plants for cursing, and I said you can even use mint for cursing.
Mm-hmm.
Said, no, you can't. Mint is not used in cursing. You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. And I had said, think about it. Mint spreads crazy, and the roots will strangle anything around it to get all the water possible. And so if you really think about it and you harvest the roots and the plant, like if you're growing it yourself and not out in the wild, if you are growing it yourself and you harvest the whole plant, you can use the whole thing in like a curse because you're strangling and you're spreading that misery or that infliction everywhere. Because it's mint.
Rosemary does the same thing. And that because if you plant rosemary is an herb that if you do not contain it, it will take over your space in time because it spreads big time. Strawberries do the same thing, but they do it a different way. And that when the plants are vining out, everywhere there's a joint in the stem that where it touches a node and where it touches the ground, it'll form roots and do it again.
Yeah, I have a vine plant that's an indoor plant that's the same thing. It has nodes on it. Wherever they touch the ground, roots will grow from there.
Right.
And, another plant that can be used in both cursing and in healing is cloves, or like clover, because, farmers, they'll have two fields. One year might be full of wheat, and the other one might be full of clover, because clover is very nitrogen rich and will put that stuff back into the soil so that they can till it up and then use it the next year. And clover spreads like wildfire. And so you can use it in cursing in that manner. And then you can use it also in healing and like other types of like maybe, money spells and so on and so forth to spread that so that, there's more opportunities. Like if you're looking for a job, you might use clover because there's more opportunities. But people only see one side of the plant. And when it comes down to ethics in terms of harvesting, if you find mint in the wild or clover in the wild, you wouldn't take the whole patch. You might take one mint plant because mint will spread. And even if you take one plant, there's 50,000 other ones out there in that same area that are still spreading.
Right.
But people have in their mind that they'll just take the whole fucking thing. And it's like, listen, bitch.
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not what would be termed an environmentalist, where I kind of go almost radically into conservation.
Yeah.
But I do believe in conservation in the sense that, the resources that you're gleaning this year, you want to be able to go back again next year and get more.
Exactly.
So you have to be reasonable.
Exactly. And then, yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to move on to the ethics of spellcraft, but continue.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, you were like in the middle of a sentence. Finish your sentence, woman.
Well, just that, when you have to think ahead, about the fact that, knowing the plant isn't one that's going to be affected severely by what you're doing.
Exactly.
And if you don't know enough about the plant to know that one piece of information, then maybe you shouldn't be out there getting that plant.
Exactly, because there are some plants that, yes, there might be 4 or 5 or 6 of them around in that area, but you don't know their root system. So if you damage one of those plants, it might affect all of them. It's like that beetle that's affecting various pine trees, where you know, the beetle gets onto one pine tree, and pretty soon, if that's not contained, that whole forest is fucked. So
yeah, well, mistletoe does the same thing.
Mistletoe?
Yeah, mistletoe. It'll grow up in the top of pine trees, and it's a fungus, and it's like a parasitic type plant, and it will actually kill the top of plant. We used to have pine trees, and that, oh geez, it's been a long, long time ago. That when I lived in another state, and these trees were really tall, like tall enough that if you had a 2-story building, it would still be above the house. And the whole top of the tree would turn brown and die off, and that is because there was mistletoe in it.
Yeah.
And it's and and mistletoe spreads from tree to tree to tree.
You wanna get people to break up? Easiest breakup spell in the entire world. Easiest breakup spell ever. And you already mentioned the only ingredient you need is mistletoe. Hang it up, get the couple to kiss, they will be broken up. Obviously, put your intentions of it poisoning and killing their relationship, right? But I mean, if it's killing a pine tree at the top, and it spreads out and kills the other pine trees, I mean, come on now, people. Think about this. Everybody kisses under mistletoe at Christmas time. You want to wreck a bitch's relationship because she with yo man, get her to kiss him under that mistletoe, that relationship is over. Get a few other couples to do it too.
Okay.
It's awesome. I just thought of that. I was like, motherfucker, I'm gonna do this now.
And you're gonna have a lot of fun every time you see someone kissing under a mistletoe now.
Yeah. Can I come to your house for Christmas and hang up mistletoe?
No.
Bitch.
No, you're not getting my cabana boy.
Oh, come on, I'll pay you for him.
No.
You'll make more money off me than he does truck driving, trust me.
Yeah, it took me a while to find a guy younger than me.
I'm younger than you, but I like Dick too much, sorry. Oh, our conversations. So
yeah, we get a little wild.
So, what about the ethics of spellcraft? Do you think that there are any? Because I mean, each witch to their own, obviously. And as we've already discussed, there isn't a single spell a Wiccan can do that doesn't violate their threefold law. But is there any ethics in witchcraft? Because the only ethic I've been seeing going around is this refusal and disgust at using animal parts in spellcraft. People will leave nasty comments, they'll unsubscribe, they'll call you names on all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, like, for instance, I'm gonna be using cat shit in a spell that I'm gonna be showing people. And I'm like, you know, people don't like that. And I'm like, why? It's something on hand. And if you need something to go to shit, you shit. Like,
well, if you live in a rural area where you raise your own chickens and for eggs and meat, and you go and you're butchering chickens, if you want to save those chicken feet to use in a spell later on, why not?
Exactly.
It's not like you're killing the animal for the purpose of getting its feet.
Exactly.
There's and that.
Yeah, like Lady Gravedancer just showed a spell on her channel where she showed how to dry out chicken feet in her dehydrator, and she used the claws in the spell to hurt this person and so on and so forth. And I'm like, but every time she does one of these videos, she always has to preface it with, if you don't like animal parts, then click off. And I'm like, why would people not like animal parts? I
think it's because there's a demographic of people in the community who they like it's the whole buffet thing again. They like certain aspects of witchcraft, but they don't like the ones that make them uncomfortable.
Well, then how can you be practicing witchcraft? Because witchcraft, as we've stated from the very beginning, maybe not this chat, but in other videos and chats, witchcraft from the very beginning is going to push you. It is going to make you face things you don't want to face. It's going to show you your deep, dark secrets. And if you don't deal with them, they're going to manifest in real, very real ways. And the inner demons that you start working with, as you said, if you don't do the proper shadow work, they could manifest into real demons that attach to you. And if you don't like the fact that, I'm using cat shit, or Lady Grave Dancer's using chicken feet, or Raven Ways is using dead mice, not that she does, but if she did, I mean, if that's making you uncomfortable and that's affecting your sensibilities, how exactly are you in witchcraft?
I think that it's the Wizard of Oz effect.
Oh.
You've got the good witch and the wicked witch.
Yeah.
The good witch would never do anything, with animal parts. It's all love and light, and all that kind of stuff. And then you got the wicked witch that does the dark stuff. They separate the two, when really witchcraft incorporates it all.
Yeah, and people don't like that. And I'm like, how are you? Because if you think about it, if you really think about it, 50 years ago, your grandmother, if she needed to use deer shit, she probably would use deer shit. But fast forward 50 years later, and if you need to use deer, don't dare use deer shit, because that might offend somebody. It's what traditional witches would use if they needed it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember stories of my great grandmother actually, and that her husband, and then my grandfather and his brothers and them, they used to do trapline hunting out in the woods where they lived. And she was not above using parts after they butchered the animal, for meat and everything. She had no problem using parts of the carcass for stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just part of it,
Yeah. And we tend to live in the society where, if it offends somebody, you can't do that. You can't show that. You can't talk about that because that might offend somebody. Well, I'm sorry. This is witchcraft. You use what you have on hand. And if you need something, whether it's an animal part or something that comes from an animal, then who the fuck cares? It's witchcraft.
There's no such thing as politically correct witchcraft.
No, there isn't.
But people want to put that in there, and it's like you can't. I mean, you can try, but then there's a whole aspect of witchcraft that you're not even acknowledging.
I was watching this one witch the other day, and she was talking about the Morgan, and she said that I will not refer to the Morgan as a her or a him, because that is going against the gender preference of the god, or of the entity. And I was sitting there thinking, what? Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, what if the Morgan comes to you in female form? Like, are you not going to say, like, for example, yes, ma'am? You're just going to say, yes, entity? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, because there's this whole movement on the internet right now about, like, gender, and, like, how I was reading this one Twitter thread about this guy who had to go to his son's school with his mother to sit down with the school counselor because the 6-year-old was showing signs, like effeminate signs, and they thought that, that he was transitioning into a female. First of all, he's a 6-year-old kid, for fuck's sake, right. And like, there's this whole gender neutral bullshit going on right now. And I'm like, you can't bring that into witchcraft. This whole political bullshit that's going on in the world right now with like gender and like labels and all that crap, it can't come into witchcraft, because witchcraft is above all of that. It just is. It's energy. It's entities coming to you. Yes, she might come to you as a man, she might come to you as a woman, she might come to you as a goddamn dog. It doesn't matter, because it's an entity. And you know, if it comes to you as a female and wants to be treated as a female, for fuck's sakes, like, you know, like there's no room for politics in witchcraft, and there's no room for people to get sensitive over animal parts in witchcraft. I don't give a fuck if you're a vegan. Like, there's no room for that, like, sensitivity bullshit. Witchcraft is about using what you have on hand, doing what needs to be done, and being done with it. And like I said, if you need to use the fucking deer liver and a cow tongue to shut a bitch up, you're going to use that. And if somebody's going to get offended, well, fuck them.
Right. Gee, Adam, tell us what you really think.
Oh, I will. Oh, I will. I will tell a bitch how it fucking is, because I'm the preacher man. On the throne with my crown, motherfucker. Oh, I fucking hate. That's the thing that bugs me, is that every witch has to be like, oh, I mean, I'm going to show animal parts in this haul I got, or I'm going to use animal parts in the spell. And it's like, if you don't like that, click off. Or like, even Ravenways has been doing this in her videos, where she's like, this channel's about witchcraft and the occult. And it's like, great, we got that. Like, I have to skip the first 2 minutes of her videos because she always throws that disclaimer out there. And I'm like, why do we need these fucking disclaimers? Like, this is witchcraft. Yeah. If people don't like it, then they'll go away.
Right.
You know, like, I don't understand it. I'm just reading the comments. Yeah, no matter what you do, you're going to offend someone. And yeah, basically, no matter what we do on YouTube, if we are showing our craft, or even on social media, if we're showing an aspect of our craft, it's going to offend somebody. And I'm tired of this whole, you have to walk on eggshells, specifically in the community. I mean, yeah, it's one thing to put a disclaimer to, you know, kind of be nice to those people who don't like seeing that stuff. But at the same time, this is witchcraft. This is your path. If you want to show it, show it. And I mean, the only thing I guess I would take offense to is somebody butchering an animal on YouTube because they need the heart. You know,
right.
Like, go to your meat market and get a cow heart. It'll work the same way as a dove's heart. Like, come on now.
Yeah. Well, shoot, just go to the store, buy yourself a whole chicken, you know, a roaster.
Yeah.
And I know here in the States, a lot of times you're able to find them where they have the giblets and everything else in there with it.
Yeah.
You know, and so you got the heart and the liver and all that. Yeah, you can get that stuff easily. You don't have to kill an animal for it. And so, you know, the senseless taking of life for the purpose of a body part, to me, is wrong.
Yeah.
But, you know, but to completely discount the use of you know, the like chicken feet and all that other kind of stuff is, you know, they have to, you know, there comes a point you have to acknowledge this is a part of the craft.
Exactly.
You yourself may choose not to practice that part, but this is a part of it.
Exactly. And people don't understand that, because this doesn't just come from, you know, I've decided to use cat shit. This comes from the fact that witches of old would use what they have on hand, you know, to do what they need to do. And there's no room, like I said, for sensibilities. And I don't give a fuck if I'm going to offend you, because it's my channel. Fuck you and your offendedness. Get back on your snowflake fucking broomstick and fly away. Fly away. Fly away, motherfucker. Fly away.
Yeah, their broomstick that's painted to look like a unicorn, huh?
Well, it's either that or they need to take the broomstick out of their ass because they've shoved it a little too far up there. I mean, I got these thick ass motherfucking taper candles, but honey, I'll pull those out of my ass if I have to. Oh, the shit we talk about.
I know.
The shit we talk about. Well, we basically covered all of our topics. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Does anybody have any questions
That's what
in
I'm
the
looking
comments?
to see.
Yeah.
Look, people, write your fucking questions. Do it now. That was kind of. Oh, I had this lady. So you remember when I used to do my sexy box openings and I would like edit the videos and like high pitch or low pitch the voice or whatever?
Yeah.
I guess tell when me and Lady Gravedancer were talking, I guess she told the Lady Gravedancer that I sounded like a demon or something, or maybe it was in a live chat. I don't remember. But apparently I sounded like a demon or like or whatever, and like just got really offended by that. Like people will be offended by anything.
Oh yeah.
What about some witches who say that a witch should command and demand the universe is there for picking? That wouldn't work for Wiccans either. No, it wouldn't. No. But what about
that would be a major violation of the.
Oh, definitely. Of it. I mean, you're harming the universe for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And don't just give the universe's gender either, because that goes against the threefold law. You are harming the universe by assuming its gender. And don't call it the goddess, because what if she doesn't want to be called the goddess? It's not a she. I've just violated. I have raped the world. I know. But what about this concept of commanding and demanding? Some witches believe it, other witches don't. I don't command the demons, because if I did, there'd be a lot more fuckery than Belith.
Yeah. I think that it comes down to the respect issue. You need to respect the spirits, the entities, demons, goddess, whoever you're working with. You need to show a level of respect. And when you're doing the commanding and demanding, where is the respect in that? It's you're wanting them for help.
Yeah.
You need them. They don't need you.
Exactly.
So where's the respect?
We don't seem to have any respect anymore. We live in a microwave society, as you like to put it. A society full of give me, give me, give me. Give me all the motherfucking time. I'm dying.
Well, I would do a healing spell, but that would go against the read, because if you're dying from that cough and I do a healing spell and it cures you, you might die of something heinously worse later.
Did you just get fucking controversial on my channel? Mother,
you're rubbing off on me. You're rubbing off on me.
Welcome to the.
But it's also called sarcasm.
Well, now you ruined it. Now I was going to induct you into the Witchy Show Hall of Fame, but then you ruined it. You fucking ruined it.
Okay.
I was going to ask you to perform at the 2019 Witchy Grammy Awards. Should we tell people about our next show that we have lined up? Our new show that goes along with this one?
Go ahead. It is your idea, so go ahead.
Witches and Wine.
Yep.
It'd be a lot more bullshitting, but still some witchcraft chat in there. But we have wine while we do it. I know I can already hear Lunar Wisdom being like, you fucking asshole. You were copying me. Like, for fuck's sakes. Because she already has one called, I think, Witchy Wine Wednesdays or something. I can't remember what it is. But
we can come up with a different name if we want to.
No, because Witches and Wine was a play on bitches and wine or bitching and wine.
Right.
And that's what I like to do is I like to bitch and complain about my life and how miserable it is. And then when people are like, if you don't like your life,
No,
change.
you like you like to bitch about the Wiccans and the hippy dippies and
Oh, just love me some hippy dippy bullshit. That's what it is. It's
yeah.
hippy dippy bullshit. This goes back to 2016, motherfuckers. Hippy dippy bullshit.
Yeah, but this one here, it's gonna we're gonna alternate months. One month we'll do Beyond the Cauldron. The next month we'll do the Witches and Wine.
Yeah, I thought it would be fun.
Every other month.
Yeah, so like next month for Witches and Wine, we're going to talk about um, a little bit about Samhain, whatever the fuck people are calling it these days. And then for Beyond the Cauldron, we're going to incorporate topics about Halloween and witchcraft and what you can and cannot do. Because, yes, there are things you cannot do. You cannot finger bang yourself to the dead, okay?
Well, that just ruined your night.
Oh, honey, you got Pornhub for that. What the hell do I need to finger bang myself to Boone for?
Oh, that's
oh, Boone, yes, oh, give it to me, Boone. Like, come on now. I'd rather watch two Czech guys fuck than that.
Oh God, we're not even drinking.
Yeah, but this is the shit that I always say. Oh, I wish this was live. I wish this was live. Oh, Boone. Oh, give it to me, Daddy. Where's your creepy gestures with their long claws? Oh, right there. Scratch that itch. Scratch that itch.
Oh my God.
Hold it there. Hold it there.
Oh, jeez. I'm just glad you said Boone and not the goddess, because that would have been interesting.
Okay, I've already had one creepy ass motherfucking dream. I think I've learned my lesson.
You
No,
think?
Boone has an interesting sense of humor. He's very like he's dirty. Like he's dirty. He was joking with me the other night. He's like, if you want this money spell to work, you need to come all over these candles. And then he just fell back laughing his head off. And I was like, you nasty. Like he has a sick, twisted sense of humor. He showed me, I was trying to put my energies in, and he was laughing, and he showed me this image of like him sitting on this giant marble dildo and just sliding down and it coming out of his mouth. And he's laughing the whole time, and I'm like, you nasty. God, he's a nasty fucking pervert.
Oh, jeez.
But we have some good times. We have some good laughs. It's what we do. I don't have to do spell work on a daily, but what would you both do on a daily for your craft? I'm not a Scorpio. I'm a Virgo. Get it fucking right. Somebody says, I wonder why. I wonder why y'all get along so well. But so yeah, no. This person says, I don't have to do a spell work on the daily, but what would you both do on a daily for your craft? Nothing, because you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do something every day for your craft. Like, where is this notion coming from that you have to do something every day for your craft?
I don't know, because I know I don't do something every day. I mean, the closest thing to doing something every day is maybe
Reading your
watering my herbal garden in the summer. What?
You said reading your smut books.
Well, yeah, I do that, but
you nasty.
You don't even know.
Ew. Ew. Your husband gets home, you're like, I just read this really fascinating chapter from 50 Shades of Grey. Let's do it.
Like, no, it's more like we can improve on that.
Ew. How do you improve on whipped chains and candle wax? You know what? Don't even answer that.
And no, we're not talking about on Wishy Wine night either.
Oh, come on.
Well, now we just lost some of the people that were thinking about watching that one, right?
Who needs them? I'm probably gonna lose like 8 or 9 subscribers from this chat alone, anyways. But they'll bounce back in about a month. Who cares?
And yeah, until we get on together again.
Welcome to the Witchy Show, motherfuckers. If you don't like the content, get the fuck off the channel.
Yeah.
But no, like there is nothing that you need to do every day. You don't need to light an incense. You don't need to do anything for your craft every day. I mean, don't treat it like a pizza delivery service. But I mean, how often in a month do you think that you do spell work? Which is mostly cursing people, but okay. How often?
No, I don't.
Every time I talk to you, you're burning somebody.
No, I'm not. Not every time.
Every time. You
exaggerate.
I'm like, how are you doing today? You're like, oh, this, that, and the other thing happened. And I'm like, oh, so how long until you burn them? And you're like, oh, pretty soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, though, I'm not one of these ones that, like, you know, you see on someone it's like easily offended. If I decide I'm going to go after someone, they have done something really way out of line. And
you haven't burned me yet. I've done so many things out of line. All of these chats.
Well, I look at it this way. You know, I look at each situation when it comes to, you know, the spell work of is this something that is going to naturally take care of itself because of the way it's already headed? Or does it need something to help it along?
Yeah.
And so I probably there's been times I've gone a couple of weeks without doing a spell, but then but sometimes I'm, you know, life gets busy with it. You know, it ebbs and flows. You know, there's sometimes you're going to be busier than others, but I would, on average, I'd say maybe actual spells, probably no more than a couple 2-3 times a week. Would be a high week for me.
What the hell are you doing?
What?
2-3 times a week? How many bitches are?
That's like during like when there's a lot going on.
Yeah, okay.
On a normally maybe about once a week.
See, I do maybe twice a month. Depending if the goddess has something she wants me to do for teaching or whatever, I mean, I'll do that. But it's like twice a month, and it's usually like a money spell to help the company. If they would fucking do what they say they're going to do, like one minute they say they don't want to take out a loan because they don't want debt. On the other hand, they say they have a personal loan. On the other hand, they say they're getting a company to invest. And I'm like, I've already done the magical work. You people just need to get off your damn ass. Like, come on now. You know, like it's maybe like twice a month that I really do anything.
Well, you know, when I do it, it's more, you know, helping others. You know, I mean, you know, like I got family and all that going on. So that's usually I do more for others than I do for stuff that directly involves me.
Yeah.
But then the rest of the time, you know, I'll do things like you know, I might be, well, like right now, I'm doing a little bit more stuff, which isn't necessarily witchy.
Yeah.
But but like I wrote about on my blog, you know, doing the homemade like the elderberry syrup for to help boost the immune system before winter comes,
You
before
mean
all the cold.
berry soup?
You the one that read it as soup. It's syrup, and that, but it's something that we have so that it builds up the immune system. So when cold and flu season hits, we're already have that.
Yeah.
We're using that to help protect us from getting sick. And then there's certain blends that I'll make that I use more in the winter months.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's like, if we go back to that Boone sex joke for a second, and you know how I
Oh,
said,
dear God.
how you said, you know, I deal with, I don't get offended easily. I'd be like, honey, burn me, mamacita, burn me. Oh yeah, right there, burn me harder. If you throw a curse at me, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a YouTube video up and be like, burn me, mama, burn me harder. On me, yeah, right there, burn me good.
You're
Let's
a
get
mess.
shades of witchcraft.
You're a mess.
Of course I'm a mess. It's the Witchy Show. The Witchy Show is a mess. Do you know this?
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was so fun to watch the videos when I first started watching. I was like, oh my God, this guy's a mess. And I was watching all the time. But like on average, on average for you, what do you do as far as working the craft?
Money, mostly. That's usually about it. It's just money. And it's not to spend on witchy things or on stupid things. I mean, the only time I do a haul is if I've got a little bit extra money and I know that I can spend it without it affecting another bill somewhere. But that's about it. And I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. Like, I'm not poor or anything. I make good money at my job, but it's making sure that that job stays stable, making sure that the money comes in. That's like, maybe if that's all I have to do in a month, that's like one spell. And that's it for that month. This month I've got to do that other spell for my friend. And I mean, I'll be showing that on YouTube, but I mean, that's it. Like, I don't have a lot of workings that need to be done. Like, I don't understand where people think they have to be doing something either for their craft or spell work every day. Like, I go months without doing anything unless the goddess is like, bitch, do this.
Yeah, well, some of the things that people can do if they feel a need to do something more often is doing your reading and then making notes in your journals about what you're reading and what you're learning, and you can do some of that, and that's considered witchy because you're writing it in your journals, and it is the topic is about that, but there's a lot of stuff you can do that is not spell related.
Yeah.
Learn to make your own candles and doing the even you can make specific spell candles using the incense and things that you would normally.
I do that.
Put something else. Put it actually in the candle wax.
Yeah. Somebody had asked, now, do you believe in any kind of balance, like what you do will hurt you? I actually had somebody put this on Facebook where they said, what you put out will always come back to you, and any spell you do will bounce. Basically, the same thing you do to somebody will happen to you. So if you curse somebody, it will curse you. And I put as a comment, I was like, no, that's a weird mindset to have. Like, if you don't believe that by cursing Bob down the street that it's going to come back to you, then it's not going to come back to you. But if you're so consciously thinking that, oh, I can't curse Bob because that'll come back to me, then yeah, it's going to come back to you if you end up doing it, because you're putting the intentions of it coming back to you out there. And and that person replied saying that I sound like a sociopath and an idiot. And I'm like, no, because if you don't believe that something will harm you, then it won't harm you.
Yeah, you kind of remove the power of that. It's funny because there was a gal that I knew in New Mexico when I was there for a while, and she went. This is like years and years and years ago. Um, she she had cursed somebody, and then she freaked out because she thought that the curse came back on her. And then I said, "How did it come back on you?" And she said, "I got in a wreck." I said, "Well, what happened?" And she said, "My tire blew and I ended up in a ditch." And that, well, as we were talking, I said, "Wait a minute, which tire blew?" And she told me, I said, "Is that the same tire that you've been driving around on with the threads showing for the last week?" And she's like, "Yeah."
I was like,
I
that's
said,
first.
I said, "That wasn't a curse. That was your stupidity and not taking care of your vehicle."
Yeah. And
You know,
there is a sense in self cursing yourself where you don't, like, for example, if you think your life is going to shit, your life will go to shit. Like, your thoughts create your reality. So
right,
think that by cursing somebody that it's going to come back to you, your thoughts create your reality. So you will end up being cursed. But and yes, everything you do has an opposite and equal reaction. But at the same time, I mean, think about it. Like, you're throwing a stone into a pond, so it's going to ripple. And if you happen to be in that pond, it's going to affect you. So, I mean, stand on the outside of the pond, and the waves from the ripple are just going to lap up on the shore and do nothing to you.
right. And I think where a lot of that comes from is
The new age bullshit.
yeah, the thing about, if you do something at somebody else, it's going to come back on you tenfold, um or threefold, or whatever. I've heard both versions. And you know and, and I don't agree with that.
Self-sabotage is a real thing. Somebody had asked if I believe if Bob called you awful names and you decide to curse him for that, I guess I'm just asking, do you believe in a line? So, I mean, every witch has their own ethics, right? I mean, when it comes to the
Right.
internet, I just block a bitch. I mean, if that bitch is being really persistent, I'll shut a bitch down. But I mean,
Yeah.
99.9% of the time, there's a block button. So, I mean, every witch has their own ethics, and you have to develop your own ethics. I mean, if you want to curse somebody because they're calling you names and you've decided that you don't want to remove them from your life naturally by blocking them and cutting off ties, and you would rather just curse them, then go ahead. But I mean, I would look at the mundane aspect of that. Okay, so Bob's calling me names and treating me like shit. I'll just delete Bob out of my life. Oh, he's now talking shit to my circle of friends about me. Now I shut a bitch down. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, that doesn't. There is no real. See, there's no line in witchcraft. There's no good. There's no bad. There's no up. There's no down. Witchcraft is just energy, and the tools
Mhm.
that you put the energy through to attain what you want. The reason we use candle spells and incense blends and so on and so forth is to aid in that magical acquisition, or the thing that we want to happen. We use those tools. We use them as tools. You don't need them, but
Mhm.
they're nice to have if you can afford them. Um, every witch has their own line. Some witches won't curse. Some witches will curse. Some witches believe that if you can't curse, you can't heal, and those witches are fucking stupid. But I mean, at the same time, if you don't understand cursing and the negative aspects of magic, how can you really practice magic? Like, if your line is at cursing and you will never curse, but you've never learned anything about cursing, and you say you're a healer and a light bringer, like, how, if you don't understand the darker aspects of witchcraft? You're just some new age bullshit who's living in fluffy duffy land and practicing hippy dippy bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, you myself, I just pretty much choose my battles. It's like, okay, is this person on a self-destruct, where they're pretty much doing it to themselves, or are they standing there on the edge with one foot over the edge, and they just need a little bit of a stiff wind to help them out?
Yeah.
You know, and if I need to help them slip on that banana peel, I'll help them.
I'll give them a stiff something else right up the ass. No lube.
But there's been a lot of people who have offended me in the past or done stuff, and I'm like, but the only time I really went for the jugular, so to speak, theoretically on somebody was when they got other people involved.
Yeah.
And that was when it's like, okay, the time to be nice is and just walk away is gone.
Yeah, and I've
You
dealt
know?
with that in the internet space where, people get nasty and then they want to involve other people and then shit's popping up about you everywhere and you just have to shut a bitch down and shut a bitch up. And, you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to, say, Billy's pissing me off this week. They're getting people involved. I'm going to curse them because then, what if Billy's a witch and they know what they're doing and they can turn that back on you? You just fucking take care of it and move on.
Right. And that's what usually I do. I mean, um, if I do have to go through the cursing issue with somebody,
Which seems to be
then,
week.
huh?
Is that which seems to be every other week?
But if something comes up where I have to do that, then you know, you and I may talk about it a little bit, but other than that, I just really don't talk about it. There's really no need. If
I,
they know,
yeah.
they're going to know that whether or not something happened.
I love when me and you talk about the bitches burning. I'm just like, you go, girl. And then you're like, and then you ask the goddess if they want to play, and they're like, motherfucker, blaze.
She does leave the room sometimes.
It's like, okay, girl, I see you. I see you and your claws. I'm gonna go this way.
Well, there was a time, a few decades ago, where it would have been her coming and saying, "It's time to play," and that's usually when it's like, okay, being nice, time to be nice is done. It's
Yeah,
time to play. Now, if I say it's time to play, she's out. She's out of here.
yeah,
Like, okay,
that makes sense.
but that's okay. But I just feel that that just means she knows that I can handle it. I don't, not and I'm not trying to say I'm like get all this power and all that other kind of stuff. It's just that I know what I'm doing.
That's why I said in one of my videos, I was like, I'm not trying to brag, but if a bitch tried to attack me, I mean, they've got demons to deal with, and I know what some of these demons are like. They are scary as shit, and if I can barely handle them, and you've never worked with demons, and you throwing shit my way, you better bet that these fuckers are going to show up on your doorstep with a baseball bat and a machine gun in hand and ready to fuck shit up. And it's like, it's not me being like, I have all this power and I'm a grand witch and I'm powerful and you don't fuck with me. It's sure, fuck with me, but it's not me that's going to be returning it back to you. It's going to be them showing up at your door, because if I can barely handle half the shit that Ashtroth has me work with, I would love to see what you can do with it. Like, I would love, like, Lady Green Dancer talks about possessed dolls. Motherfucker, please. I got a house that's possessed.
Yeah. But I mean, with me, it's more of I look, is this person really worth my time and energy?
Chances
And
are they.
then, huh?
I said chances are they aren't.
But if they are, then it's like, okay. But, but I mean, definitely, I mean, I use the tools that God has taught me,
Do you
and among others
do you ever
over
have
the years.
spells? Or like if you're going to do a magical working, that spell will pop into your head and play over and over of like, I need to use this, I need that, I need this tool, I need to do it at this time. Like, do you ever have that? Because I get that all the time.
Yeah, I've had that at times, and there's been times when I'll reach for something, and it almost feels like someone else is in control of my hands of grabbing something else,
Yeah.
you know. And so I'm like, okay, You know, you just I I just learned to go with it. You know,
Yeah.
I quit arguing it. You know, years ago. You
I
don't. It doesn't help.
Yeah, like I've never argued with it. Like I actually kind of enjoy it when like this spell that I have to do tomorrow that's been playing in my head for like 2 days now, and the goddess is like, I really want in on this. And it's like all of the ideas of what to do and how to use the wax poppet and like what to put in and how to put in, right? Like I don't
Right.
have pins and I need to stick pins in this guy's head and heart. And I don't have pins. So what am I going to use? Thumbtack, because it's a pin. You just have to
Right.
be careful so that the thumbtack doesn't catch on fire and then you get that nasty burning um, plastic smell. But you know what I mean, right? Like
Yeah.
you just get these ideas that just start flowing and it's like, ooh, the juices are going tonight.
Yeah, and that's usually when it's like, okay, this is gonna be a good one.
Oh yeah. Like
You
even
know, but
when that shit happens, I know it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna work.
yeah, and you know, but that's where, you know, for me, it goes back to that relationship. You have that trust that if they say this is what you need, it's like, okay, you know. But there's literally been times when I'm actually in the middle of doing a working and I'll go to reach for something and it's like, nope, you're going to grab this instead. And I actually it's almost like someone else is moving my hand to grab this other thing instead.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, okay, you know, but there was a time when it's not like that. Like, no, I want to use this. And it's like, no, no, no. That never ends well.
I never had that before where it was like, no, I want to use this instead. I just listen because, like I say, it's not my craft, it's their craft, and I'm just
Right.
I'm the
Yeah.
spirit bitch. So, but we unfortunately are out of time for today. I hope you
No
all.
more 5 hour videos.
No, I said that in one of my other videos, and somebody
Yeah.
had,
No.
and they're like, "Oh, I was hoping it'd be a 10-hour video," and I was like, "Motherfucker, please!" Like I
Oh
know,
my
but
gosh. No.
motherfucker, please. So, but we're out of time and we're running away because fuck all of you. And right at the end when we have 8 viewers, this whole time we had like 4 or 5, and now we have 8. But I think a 3-hour video is good enough.
Well, we did. Yeah. Yeah. We did. Got 5 more minutes. And it'd be a 3 hour.
It's like 2 minutes for me, but okay.
Okay.
When is our next video? Our witches and wine. When is that? I know it's next month, but do you have a time in mind? Beginning, middle, end of month?
Um, I don't know. Probably probably toward the end of the month would work.
I
Is
have to
that is if we're gonna be huh?
I have to wait till the end of next month to drink
Well,
wine.
I said toward the well, no, you could drink wine before that, um, but no, I was thinking toward the end of the month because if we're gonna be talking about Samhain, then it'll be closer to October and
Does that mean that our next Beyond the Cauldron is closer to Halloween then?
oh yeah, that's well, this one here.
Because Witches and Wine, we would talk a little bit about Samhain, but
Oh
it's
yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
That's yeah. I know you had mentioned you wanted to talk about Samhain a little bit, and so that's why I mentioned.
yeah. But I wanted to keep the blunt of the Samhain talk until the October Beyond the Cauldron.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we could do it anytime.
Okay, we'll probably do it like maybe middle or towards the end of next month,
Yeah.
and then we'll probably get together before then to chat about topics for that one.
And a lot of other BS.
Probably. It is a Witches and Wine. There will be lots of bullshittery and a lot less fuckery. I wonder how many bitches I can call out. Let's think of all the bitches. I got all the bitches on one hand. I'm gonna call you all out. Fuck, maybe we should just call it Shady and Wine.
No.
We can talk about Patreon.
No, I don't even go on Patreon.
I only follow one person on Patreon, which is Ember Honeyraven. That is it. All of her best videos are on Patreon, I swear to God. All of the best ones, the ones you really want to see from Ember Honeyraven, are on Patreon.
Yeah, I don't get on Patreon. I don't get on the Facebook groups.
I use the Facebook groups for fucking talking points and videos because I have nothing to do video on anymore. And like, yeah, like there'll be times where it's like, here, you guys, you can have 5 fucking videos, but those are like things that we've talked about and haven't covered in a live video, or they're things that like, or they're the Book of Shadows prompts, or the When Magic Can't Help You, or they're like some fuckery going on in a Facebook group that I'm like, let's shed some light on your stupidity. Like, come on. I don't think there is a Wiccan or witchcraft-based Facebook group out there that has not seen my YouTube channel, because every time I join a new one, some idiot is like, oh, I know you. I've seen your channel. And I'm like, oh, fuck me. I think you have good talking points before you idiots kick me out because I speak the truth. But anyways, we are off for the night and I'm going to bed. So I will talk to y'all later.